and when we were out, good meeting with her.
And I know there's another committee or two that wants to meet with you next week, so.
We're having our meeting tomorrow.
Oh, there we go. All right, there we go. Perfect, great.
That's all I have there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Miggett?
Yes, Mayor. I just want to note that the Animal Welfare Committee October fundraiser was a huge success. Thanks to all those who bought tickets and to the local businesses who donated gifts to the gift auction. It was the biggest fundraiser they ever had, in fact. And this month I will meet with the Parking Authority, asking them to send a letter to the Chamber encouraging downtown businesses to utilize the railroad lot for employees to open up parking in the downtown. That's all.
And we all know you're a tireless advocate for the Animal Welfare Committee, so thank you for your support of them, and that's great to hear that they raised that much money. Last week was packed for that, and it was flat. Yeah, had the band, had everything. Thank you very much, Councilman. Okay, we're going past the mayor's report, already spoke, and we're going to the borough administrator. Steve?
I'll also be very brief. Andy talked about Central Avenue, they did start that project, on track, and we picked up a couple additional curbs that we're going to do through CDBG at St. Louis, Cook, and progress meeting for the Ocean Avenue water main project is on schedule. These are going to be finished early spring, and then the county is coming to do their final install pave. And 18 Q said no go on paving the water tank, so the power has come down.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you. Eileen, anything for the agenda? I believe the curb cuts were added.
Since it was posted, item 1G was removed and item 2H was added. And just as the last night meeting, there was a minor change to ordinance 33. That was posted to the website.
Okay. Now we're going to open up.
And the curb cuts were added. 217 Laurel will be 2I and Laurel Street Philadelphia will be 2J. Are they both going to be 2 feet?
No,
one way.
16 feet on Philadelphia and 10 feet.
All good?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to open up first public participation now. I know it says 5-minute limit, but tonight for all public participation, it's going to be 3-minute limit, which I actually believe is actually in our ordinances, but we generally give people a little bit more leeway. I'm going to let Vince Caston, a veteran, speak on Pearl Harbor first. Vince? You probably want to make it to the microphone here. Yeah, wait until he gets to the microphone. You just got to use the mic. Thanks.
This work?
No. It worked as well as mine, which is not great tonight.
There you go.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
I want to thank the mayor for letting me come forth. I didn't realize you're going to have an audience here with material. You may be veteran, and I'd like to say just a few words. Everyone is aware that the 80th anniversary of the Pearl Harbor attack, December 7th, 1941. War between Japan and the United States had been a possibility since the 1920s. Japan had been wary of American expansion in the Pacific since their 1890s annexation of Hawaii and the Philippines. They began to take a hostile stance but remained trading partners. Tensions grew after Japan invaded Manchuria. Their attack on the USS Panay and the Nanking Massacre. In 1938, the United States stopped providing Japan with war implements. And in 1940, they invaded French Indochina. By late 1940, it was believed that hostilities between Japan and the United States were imminent. Objectives. The Japan attack had several aims: destroy the American fleet, conquer Southeast Asia, and to stop the United States from mobilizing forces that believed that we would seek a peace with them. submarines. The Japanese had at least 5 two-man suicide subs. They were turned loose inside of our harbor. They were located and destroyed by minesweepers and destroyers. This occurred before any formal declaration of war was made. Now the aftermath. The Japanese had at least 2-man suicide subs. They had 5 of them. They were turned loose inside of our harbor. They were located and destroyed by minesweepers and destroyers. This occurred before any formal declaration of war was made. Now the aftermath of this. The day after the attack, President Roosevelt delivered his famous Day of Infamy speech to a joint session of Congress, called for a formal declaration of war on the Empire of Japan. Congress obliged less than 1 hour later. On December 11th, Germany and Italy declared war on us, and Congress issued a declaration of war against both of them on that same day. The synopsis of this entire thing. In 1941, the island of Oahu at Pearl Harbor was the U.S. Navy fleet base, which included submarines, carriers, battleships, cruisers, and destroyers. The attack was led by Admiral Yamamoto. Their mission was to blockade Pearl Harbor and keep ships from leaving. Negotiations with Japan ended on December 7th at 12:30 Washington time. The message was delivered and the attack would go on at 2 o'clock that same day. Japanese two-man subs and air forces, including fighters, dive bombers, and torpedo bombers, were launched from 6 carriers. Of the 8 U.S. battleships attacked, all were damaged. All were damaged and 4 were sunk and later raised, except for the Arizona. Also sank were 3 cruisers, 3 destroyers, and an aircraft training ship and a mine layer. A total of 188 aircraft were destroyed and 155 were damaged. A total of 2,403 Americans were killed and 1,178 were wounded. The anchored battleships and cruisers plus planes clustered at Wheeler Field that were bombed and destroyed included battleships Maryland, Oklahoma, Arizona, California, and Tennessee, plus cruisers Utah, Raleigh, Helena, and Honolulu. On the airport runway, a few planes took off but were shot down almost immediately, plus many were destroyed while they were still on the field. The Japanese left around 10 a.m., figuring that their work was done. Their losses included a measly 29 planes, which was considered small. And from this date on, into the future of the United States, whenever there was a conflict or the suggestion of one, the saying became, remember Pearl Harbor. Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Okay, anybody else for items on the agenda or ordinances on first reading? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to close public participation?
I'll make a motion to close first public participation and approve consent resolution 1 and 2.
I will second.
Councilman Vitale?
Yes.
Councilman Testa?
Yes.
Councilwoman Burns?
Yes.
Councilman Cortez?
Yes.
Councilman Pistola?
Yes.
Councilman McGinn?
Yes on 1, abstain on 2A, 2B, 2G, yes on 1.
Okay, we're gonna move on to ordinances. Second reading.
So on to second reading of ordinance 2021-32A. An ordinance of the Borough of Mount Pleasant Beach, County of Ocean City, New Jersey, establishing the salaries and titles of certain employees of the borough.
We're gonna open up, public participation for this. Anybody would like to speak? Okay, hearing none.
Motion to close and adopt.
And second.
Councilman Vitale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Burns,
Yes.
Councilman Cortez,
Yes.
Councilman Pasola,
Yes.
Councilman Higgins.
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-32B, an ordinance of the Borough of Pine Beach, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, establishing the salaries and titles of certain employees of the borough.
Okay, we're gonna open up public participation for this. Is there anybody that would like to speak? Hearing none?
I'll make a motion closing the ballot.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Councilman Kelly,
Yes.
Councilman Testa,
Yes.
Councilman Burns,
Yes.
Councilman Cortez,
Yes.
Councilman Pasola,
Yes.
Councilman Higgins.
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-32C, an ordinance of the Borough of Pine Beach, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, establishing the salaries and titles of certain employees of the borough.
Opening it up for public participation. Is there anybody that would like to speak? Hearing none?
I'll make a motion to close and to amend. Adopt.
I'll second.
Councilman Vitale,
Yes.
Councilman Testa,
Yes.
Councilman Burns,
Yes.
Councilman Cortez,
Yes.
Councilman Pasola,
Yes.
Councilman Higgins.
Yes.
So all three of those ordinances have, been adopted. And then we have second reading of ordinance 2021-33. An ordinance of the Borough of Pine Beach, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, combining and revising chapter 13 and 27, regulating rentals in the borough, including short-term transient rentals.
Well, if there's one thing that every single person in this room can agree on tonight, it's how quickly we got to this, right? I think everybody's happy, right? This is record. I mean, we like to talk about what we're doing with our committees and everything else, and this is pretty much record speed for us. So thank you all for waiting to get to this point. So we're going to open up discussion amongst the council first. If any members of the council have something that they want to say, now would be the time to do so. Okay. All right. Well, that said, I'm going to say something, and I know we're going to hear a lot of strong opinions tonight. And you know, again, I wanted to thank everybody for coming out tonight. This is an important part of government. But we have strong opinions too. And you know, to start this off, you know, with so many new people in the room tonight, I thought it was important to kind of give everybody a little bit of background on myself. My day job is as a federal lobbyist. I started my own lobbying firm 12 years ago because I saw how much government had been corrupted by deep-pocketed interests and campaign donations. So I started a lobbying firm that doesn't dole out campaign contributions. I started a firm that gives a voice to those groups who had previously been drowned out and not been able to afford one. Now I say all that because that's a dynamic that needs to be addressed here tonight. Lobbying influence. We respect the rights of residents and taxpayers and even total outsiders to express themselves and their interests. Unfortunately though, we also have deep-pocketed interests in the form of Airbnb, the Expedia Group, who owns VRBO, and other groups using their money and weight to try and warp the facts and drown out the wants and needs of Point Pleasant Beach residents. In the past few days, the council has received roughly 300 form emails, all generated by a system controlled by these groups. They received help from a self-interested resident who then gave them the private email addresses and cell phone numbers of most of the people in this town. And we know who that is. That led to over 1,000 phone calls, text campaigns, even a non-objective bias survey that I'm sure is going to be presented here tonight, without telling everyone how it was set up to trick elderly residents, nor how those making the calls tried to pressure people into certain responses by preying on monetary fears. A text campaign sent this morning said, "Don't let the borough council call the shots on what happens to your clients." Even a prominent local business leader was harassed on multiple phone calls trying to get him to say that his business would be adversely impacted. He refused. I haven't seen a lot of hubris like this in a very long period of time. Now here's the thing about how lobbying is done by large deep-pocketed groups. They always try and make the message altruistic. They always try and take it away from self-interested approaches and instead find a lane to show how noble and acting for the greater good they are. The reality is that for every $1,000 in rentals on an Airbnb, Airbnb makes $170 in fees. That's staggering to me. But you can see their motivation. In comparison, the borough of Point Pleasant Beach, even with our Airbnb tax, we make $30. And we have to police these structures, we have to provide DPW services, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Airbnb has over a $5 million lobbying budget every year. And a good chunk of that is aimed at states and municipalities to keep the gravy train running, regardless of the local impact. In this case, they've tried to desperately grasp onto our economy as their rallying cry. Most of the emails that we received were entitled, "Protect Our Local Economy." This is ironic because 99.9% of the emails were not from local residents, and almost 100 of them, from what I could tell looking at property tax records, were not even from people who own property here. But I guess we're just friends and potential investors. Ironically, we had virtually no one here when we passed sweeping downtown business ordinances earlier this year, or when we even passed the budget. Both of those had far bigger impacts on our local economy and on our budget. I want to be frank with you all who are about to speak. I respect your opinion. The council respects your opinion. I respect your right to make your voice be heard. And I respect your right to look after your own financial interests. This is America. But I'm asking you not to step up to the microphone and try and sell this council a factless scare tactic about our local economy. It holds no water whatsoever. You can't in good conscience tell us, on one hand, how without short-term rentals, no one will be spending money in the off-season, without acknowledging that if a short-term renter wasn't in there, a full-time resident would be, who would be eating out and dining the entire off-season. If anything, this ordinance could actually help our local economy by putting more full-time residents in houses who are currently getting priced out of the market by investors paying far over asking value. Those full-time residents would serve to make our businesses more viable year-round instead of seasonal. I also want to state for the record that our main objective in passing this ordinance is to protect the future of Point Pleasant Beach. We've all watched as our year-round population and school sizes have shrunk, while the percentage of homes purchased by investors has grown. It has gotten so bad that our building department tells us now that many new homes being constructed are without even master bedrooms and clearly purpose-built to be rentals only. This is a trend that needs to be reversed, or else Point Pleasant Beach will be a town in name only. This isn't about whether you're a superhost. It's not about what type of tenants you rent to. This is about the elected governing body of Point Pleasant Beach fixing a zoning loophole that has been exploited for financial gain. Our town's forefathers never wanted bed and breakfasts, hotels, and motels in most parts of town. That's why these areas are not zoned for it. Yet despite all that, all the inconveniences of living next to a commercial property is being imposed on our residents who didn't choose to buy next to one. Hotels and motels have to have very specific insurance. They're managed property where problems can quickly be identified and rooted out. They have to have enough parking for all their guests. Residents know clearly where these commercial properties are, and they can choose to purchase their home next to them or not. That's not the same with short-term rentals. Let me also be clear, for those who try and say that this was a rushed decision, that needs to be looked at more. We're not alone on this front, and this wasn't remotely rushed. 12 towns in Ocean County have already passed short-term rental bills. 2 more already have them on the books and are going to be passed soon. Point Pleasant Beach took a measured approach. We studied this, we gave it an extra summer without any regulations to look at it, and we ultimately decided what was in the best interest for our residents. Everyone speaking tonight will have 3 minutes, and that will be enforced. All I ask is that when you're notified that your time has ended, that you please respect the others who wish to speak and end your comments accordingly. Please make sure to speak your name and your legal residence and address and town that you legally reside in before starting. That's been our process for the beginning of time, and that's going to stay today. Legal address, legal town. We will allow one resident to speak for every investor that does, to keep the process fair. When you finish your comments, we ask that you please exit the room to allow someone waiting outside to come in and speak. Thank you all very much. Public comment now. Councilman Corbel, you raised your hand faster than anyone you went by.
Well, you said I could leave afterwards.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm not gonna work it.
And Vanessa,
Yes.
Yep, I'm only here.
My name is Mike Corbel. I live at 8 Lake Terrace in Point Pleasant Beach. I don't understand how the town, and I was part of council for a while, allowed outside investors to buy 7 Lake Terrace, 9 Lake Terrace, and now 10 Lake Terrace. I'm sandwiched between 2 Airbnbs. The old rental system that I worked on before I retired from real estate, rented summer for weeks, and in the winter, it was a winter rental for the complete season. The weekend rentals are unbearable, and let's call them what they are. They're parties. They're not weekend rentals, they're not short-term rentals, they're parties. They're not coming in to go to the beach. They're not coming in to go out to eat. They're eating there, they're partying there. I'm gonna give you a little quick background on me. Most of you folks down here know it. I'm not sure that you guys do. My wife and I bought here so our kids could go to the infant school. My wife was a principal in the Ocean County vocational school, and she knew the brick system, and she knew Point Borough system. She wanted kids to go to the beach system. They went to the beach system. Unfortunately, in 2000, my wife got sick and she passed away. I'm here tonight because I owe this town for how they handled my girls. You were one of them, Andy. Your wife, Jack, was so great, even though I didn't agree with you guys politically at the time. That didn't make any difference. This town was a family. It was a bond. It was a school system that worked for the kids. My girls today would not be, and they're terrific. They're the proudest things of my life. They would not be that if they weren't in Point Pleasant Beach when this happened. And what you're trying to do, I think you're being kind to the renters personally. For out-of-state people to come out and just plop a hotel next to me, whether it's weekly or whether whatever, I'd probably even be harder than that, because we need the kids. We need full-time residents to have children to keep the schools going. If you guys lose the schools, you lose the town.
Councilman, thank you very much. And Vanessa, I know you raised your hand, but we're gonna go resident and resident. So someone, from outside town, please raise your hand and come up and speak. There's no. Well, no, well, Vanessa's next. Sir, please, go ahead. Keep in mind, the earlier you speak, the quicker you get to go, like Councilman Corbel said. How are you, sir?
Fine, thanks, Mayor Council. I think I'm one of your dreaded investors. My name is Michael Candido. I live at 51 Wooten Road, Essex, my primary residence.
Okay, I'm gonna need you to spell your last name for me and, repeat your address.
Candido, and it's 51 Wooten, Wooton Road, Essex Fells, New Jersey, 07021.
And thank you for coming today, and thank you for investing. So, just so you can hear.
How's that?
Perfect, thanks.
I'll follow Vince's advice there. So I don't live in Point Beach. I do have a house in Bayhead, which I've owned since 1990. So I mean, we feel that we're members of the overall community here, and certainly care about Point Pleasant Beach as much as we do about Bayhead or anything else. So we recently purchased a duplex rental unit at 10 Stony Road.
Oh, Jesus.
So,
We have to be respectful with everybody.
Be respectful, yeah. Please be quiet when somebody else
So
speaks.
this is only the first season that we've had. We have it's been rented pretty fully during the summer with weekly rentals, and we're also fortunate enough to have winter rentals. I am unaware of any problems that we've had, although I'm not sure if the groan that I heard is in the back, because we certainly want to be good neighbors and take care of any problems. I read this ordinance, and I understand the overall concept that with these VVROs and things like that, that obviously seems like it could be a serious problem. I don't think our property falls under that umbrella. But in the ordinance, there's some things that sort of puzzle me, and if I can ask some questions about them.
And so the one thing that I just want to state for everybody right now, just to keep everything moving, we're not going to do back and forth or anything, but we will write down your questions and we'll try and address everything at the end. Okay, fine. So.
Mr. Kennedy actually sent an email, which I've already read, so I'm aware of his question.
Okay, perfect. And you can, and the borough attorney is going to, for questions that we can't answer, the borough attorney is going to try and address some things at the end as well.
All right, well, let me throw something out, and because some of it, to me, seems a little bit arbitrary and capricious, but maybe the way I'm reading this and what your intended enforcement is for some of these things. For instance, 13-8A, pending complaints will deny a license being issued. I mean, that seems a little, that you're guilty before.
And we will address that at the end.
13-8.6, prior violations will deny a license. I mean, if there's a prior violation, but it's been addressed and satisfied, I mean, why wouldn't a license be issued? I don't quite get that. 13-12, you want the name and address of each tenant and the fees paid posted on the inside door of the unit. I mean, again, that seems to be a rather onerous requirement for, let's say, a weekly rental. So someone's going to have to run back and forth every week and post the names of the new incoming tenants and their addresses and how much they're paying for the rent. I'm not sure what you're trying to do with that, but it seems like that information could be perhaps provided electronically to the building department, or something would be a lot more manageable. And 13-26.c, there's a 2-year certificate of occupancy denial for all the properties that you own if there's a violation conviction. I don't quite get that. That seems rather onerous if the violations have been corrected and rectified. So again, those are concerns that I have with the way this ordinance is drafted. It seems to be somewhat, arbitrary, capricious, and maybe unfair. Again, recognizing that you all do want to have the law and order in the town in that, but
and we will address pretty much all of those at the end, because I assume that they're going to be common threads. We heard about some of those in the emails and everything, so we will address that.
All right, and just in closing, then, somebody, when I said Penn Stony Road, somebody made a negative comment. I don't know what that's about, but
I'm sorry, but we're at 4.5 minutes we gave you.
All right. If there's an issue with that, we will.
They can come see it. They can come see it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Vanessa didn't even.
No.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you great.
So,
Name and address.
Vanessa Rudd, 318 Parkway, 20-year resident. I've lived with Section 8, rental, non-rental, crazy rental, long-term rental, 2-year rental, across the street. I'm happy to report I have 14 new neighbors. Everybody left New Jersey. But they're all full-time residents now. We have 1 rental left. It's our only B&B. I've had to complain just to him respectfully because we love all of our neighbors. We have amazing neighbors. But we had problems last summer and he corrected it, and now he does background checks and only rents to families and more than 5 days. He stopped doing Saturdays and Sundays because that's where we were running into problems. Because they were there and they would cram 50 people in a 1-bedroom house. So that's where my problem is with Airbnb and Verbo. And to the gentleman asking a question of having the name, every time we have rented in Lake Placid or another ski town, when you walk into my rental, on the wall or on the door is a sleeve and our name, our addresses, and our contact information, and our rental agreement is in that sleeve, okay? So yes, that's not stretching to ask for that information, and that's actually for emergency purposes. God forbid something happens in the house, he knows what's going on in that house. So, again, I love everything we're talking about. I'm against Airbnb and Vrbo. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vanessa. Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Just two things. Eric Seberg, 128 Rainbow Avenue. We have three houses, 2 are industrial properties, right? You say, Vrbo and Airbnb, what about Craigslist? I mean, Craigslist started out as a porn site, and yet, you know, you're not bringing up Craigslist.
And no residents are exempted, right?
Right, no, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm not saying that at all, sir. I said, but, I mean, who and what they make should be what we're paying, not the town council. If they're making money on us, it's not money coming out of your pocket, it's our money that we're willing to spend because they're advertising and they're doing a lot of work.
I was simply
Now,
stating
I don't-
motivation.
Right, but I don't use Airbnb, I always use Paul Ward or realtors in town. I don't use it, but, I mean, for other people, but short-term rental, I mean, you got Seafood Fest out here. I mean, you got the Seafood Fest, you got weddings.
That's right.
At Martello's, Tiki, at Jenks, the beautiful beaches. How about New Year's Eve? Huge events down here. You know, that call for short term. And again, I don't do that. I only rent in summertime, and I live here. You know, but you know, I live on a street called RR, Resort Residential. I bought in a resort residential town. So for us to have people coming down here, that's why I wanted to be down here, because it's a resort town. You can't change what Point Pleasant has always been. What you want to make it is a whole different town, and I think that's a mistake. Leave Point Pleasant Beach. We live here. I don't know if you live here, but we live here. And we've been here.
We all have to live here.
Okay, but, you know, I mean, I'm sitting on my couch 6 days a week. We're here since the 80s. You know what I mean?
I was here in 1985.
Okay.
I've been here since 1968.
So, but there hasn't been an issue since then. Now, the last thing, I know the time is, I would love to see a police officer come in and check a C of O for a bedroom that has 94 square foot instead of 100 square foot. Let's pull our trusted police officers off the beach to check a C of O that says 100 square foot for a bedroom for 2 people. In your manual, that says, okay, oh my God, there's 2 people sleeping in that bedroom, and the C of O says there'll only be 1. Chief Michigan, can you come and check this C of O? Because there's too many people sleeping in the same bed.
Okay.
You got too many things.
Understood. We don't want to pay attention to details. So like, if there's like a fire extinguisher and it's just like a year out of date or something, we'll just let that slide go.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
Yeah, we're in comments.
Sleeping, yes.
Mr. Mayor, that's time.
Sleeping on a pull-out couch.
The man in the corner has had his hand up, Mayor.
Thank you very much, thank you.
He's welcome.
I promised my wife I wouldn't get up and say anything. My name is Dennis Schreiber. I live at 1208 Charleston Street. I was born and raised in this town. I was here, my dad bought our house on River Avenue in 1939, which is before your dad bought in... No, in 1948. We've been friends for a long time. And Tom was a student of mine when I was vice principal of the Beach High School. You know, this gentleman just got up and said, we need to have Point Pleasant Beach. Well, I'm telling you, Point Pleasant Beach, when I grew up, was a lot different than now. And if you want it to stay the way it is, you need to do things like this ordinance. You know, I came back here, for a lot of years, I couldn't afford to live in Point Pleasant Beach. But God blessed me, and my wife and I were able to move back here. And when we had a huge house, 4,700 square feet, you know, in Howell. And when we downsized, I said, she said to me, where do you want to go? I said, Point Pleasant Beach. I was born there and I'm gonna die there. And I don't want to see this as a, you know, some sort of bed and breakfast community. That's not what this town is. It's not what it's always been. And it shouldn't move in that direction. I heard and read some of the stuff that was written about, like Seaside. We don't want to be a seaside. Do you know how much money they have spent in Seaside trying to reverse what they've done over the years? The mayor's a good friend of mine. A couple of the councilmen are friends of mine because I was assistant superintendent at Central Regional School District, and those kids came to us. So we lived a lot of their problems. You know, they're trying to reverse it because they saw what was wrong. If you don't pass this kind of ordinance, you're inviting the same place and scenario that they've been. So all I'm asking is, please, do the right thing, pass this ordinance. I think it's the right thing to do. And if you do that, I'll still get my hair cut.
What number on River Avenue?
323 River Avenue.
340. That's right, bro.
Hey, one of the things that
Excuse me.
Al Gray.
And we'll manage the time to the audience.
Sir,
Thank you.
excuse me. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Would you please spell your name for me, please?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, would you please spell your name for me?
Oh, it's the last name, Driver, D-R-I, B as in boy, E-R.
And it's Dennis?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Dennis.
Yep.
And then we next.
Okay.
My name's Tony Haddad. I own the Tower Cottage Bed and Breakfast. It is the only bed and breakfast in town. My house was approved by the Board of Adjustment, and we have a variance, use variance, that authorizes us to operate as a bed and breakfast. We are a high-scale, high-end bed and breakfast. We were voted the best bed and breakfast in New Jersey a few years ago. When someone says that a bed and breakfast community, people are using the term improperly. The Airbnbs are not bed and breakfasts. They are not. They're people's homes that they're renting out a room inside their homes. And I'm against that myself. We do not belong to Airbnb, but we do advertise on the internet, and we are still considered one of the best B&Bs, not only in New Jersey, but in the country.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at it, it's called the Tower Cottage.
You're a source of town pride. You're a state historic landmark, aren't you?
Yes.
We're well aware. We're well aware. Built in the 1800s, correct?
1883.
It's incredible.
And I took that house that was in quite a bit of disrepair, and I restored it. And I think it's the most beautiful house in town. But I mean,
It's a source of pride for all of us.
You did a beautiful job. Next to mine?
Number one, I do not want this to exclude me from the investment that I made, and it is my home, I live there. That's ordinance?
The ordinance does not apply to approved bed and breakfast.
Pardon me?
Ordinance does
It
not
won't apply
apply
to you at
to
all.
approved bed and breakfast. You have zoning approval. You have zoning approval.
Okay. I just want to just mention one thing. The Arts Committee did a wonderful job on repairing the straight wall. And I'm a member of the Historic Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you did. You set a good example for everybody.
And it is a beautiful place. I've been in there. Your house is on the cook's floor.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Twice. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Lisa Kent, in Chairman Street,
Yeah, okay, good.
and I know the people outside want to hear too. I live at 201 Washington Avenue. I also purchased the second property at 110 Trenton recently. It is my hope that my daughter will live there with her soon-to-be husband and their kids eventually. For now, in order to afford it, I need to rent it. I just want to tell you a quick story about me and why I think a 4-day rental makes sense for this town. First of all, I'm really excited to be in front of you all, and thank you because you are the reason I'm down here. What you have done with this town is incredible, and I thank you for what you've done so far and what I know you're going to do. Secondly, my 110 Trenton house was made available for 2 weeks to the cook store, the Anthem's Cook Store. Canceled my rental, gave them the house to decorate and clean up. Why did I do that? I think the community and the schools here are really important. That's something that I, as, quote, an investor, but also a resident, did for this town. The other thing that I think is important is that, yes, I use VRBO and Airbnb. Actually, I also book through Kim Allen and through other local realtors. I'd rather give them the business. They take the same 10 to 12% that Airbnb and VRBO take, and if they can get the business, it's their business to take. I recently also listed with the manager, realtor. My hope is that I'm giving the business I'm planning a baby shower. The baby shower will involve a couple of people staying down here for a few nights. The recent renter was here for Thanksgiving. She went out every night but Thanksgiving in town, told me she loved the town. I left her recommendations. And on Thanksgiving, she brought her 92-year-old mom from Brick over and had Thanksgiving in the home. Thus far, and I've rented both homes, I've never had any complaints, nor do I expect to have complaints. But I cannot seem to rent the house in the winter, for the full winter, at a rental that even half covers my mortgage. What I can do is rent for 4-day long weekends, and one 4-day long weekend gets me a long way toward my mortgage. So I'd really like to be able to continue to do that with quiet family renters that park on the driveway and enjoy the town.
Thank you. And just a question, your legal residence is 201 Washington.
That's correct, that's my house.
You will be able to continue to do that once this ordinance is passed, if it's passed, because there's an exemption for residents.
So I'll be able to rent for the 14.
Yep.
So that's great, but I guess I'm making a plea for everyone. I was not always going to be full-time down here. Again, couldn't afford it. And the rentals helped me get over the hump to be able to ultimately relocate down here. So the plea is for everybody who has family-oriented renters to be able to do 4 days if they need to allow them to fund their home.
Thank you. And we're happy to have you here. Thank you very much. Okay, who's next? I see a hand in the back. I can't tell who it is. I can't see. Sir, please.
I'm an investor, just for the record, you know, want to double up.
Yeah, we'll go to a resident next, just keep it fair. I don't know how many, can you tell me are there a ton of people in the hall or no? Okay, all right, good. Thanks, sir, please go ahead.
Phil Starr, 329 Cantrell Road, Richmond, New Jersey. So I appreciate the ability to be in front of the council tonight. I do recognize, like any good community has a combination of stakeholders. You have residents, you have investors, you have small businesses, and you need that cycle to be able to run. And so I do respect like a lot of the viewpoints that the residents are raising today. And so I don't want to be one of the investors who are on the pole, whereas some of the residents are on the other side of the pole where we're kind of getting in the middle. I do think there's some level of middle ground that could be established here, and just a couple of ideas I wanted to throw out. As an investor, as you came into the town, obviously, being able to have some level of non-summer rentals is key in order to still be an active part of the community. I do come down here in the winter myself and use the property multiple times. Perhaps weekly rentals are permitted on big holiday weekends like New Year's and Christmas, Easter. We get a lot of families that are coming down during that period that come in, 3 or 4 families. I happen to own a 6-bedroom or a 7-bedroom in town, so it's 3 or 4 families coming in. They're staying for the week, and all the time when they leave their reviews, they talk about the places in town that they go to. They're coming in with little kids, they're coming in with their parents. It's family units as opposed to giant party rentals. I completely support trying not to have the one day, 200 people, kind of destroying the town. That serves none of us any good, right? Second counter proposal or idea that I wanted to throw out is, thinking about it in the winter rental time, it's like we're concerned about the VRBO and the Airbnb and like the one-day rentals. How do you permit maybe weekly rentals, but through the realtors? And we're using the realtors locally as the screening process to help ensure we're renting for the right families in town. So I do think there's some other ways that we can try to find a middle ground that helps the residents with not wanting this to turn into, something that is destructive, right, to the community. We all want this to be a thriving community. And I just think there's some things that we can think about that can help us achieve a good middle ground. That's what I wanted to say today. I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for writing down, and thank you for investing in it.
Spell your name and, what was your address again? Your last name is Carr, C-A-R?
K-A-R-G, 329 Cantrell, C-A-N-T-R-E-L-L, Road, Ridgewood, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a resident that would like to speak next? Oh, please, yeah, come on in.
Ann Liger, resident of Point Pleasant Beach, 307 New Jersey Avenue. I would like to speak and very much echo what this gentleman talked about is the 1-month requirement for off-season rentals. I think that's absolutely wrong because the exact thing he's talking about. And who's going to be hurt most by this are the small people, not the big investors. The small people are going to be hurt who own a rental property, who rent responsibly, whether they use Airbnb. I'm guilty. I use Airbnb when I go to Europe. I use it when I go to Tucson or some other internet site. I'm not flying in and going to a realtor. That's how people are doing business, and it's going to expand. You're not going to slow that down, that trend. So, but I really think you should seriously consider allowing short-term rentals. Leave it up to the property owner to make what's in the best interest of their property and their clients. And some of these people have repeat people who come in for holidays. We want off-season people in, and off-season people do spend money in town. They do eat out. So I think you should either eliminate it to no restrictions whether they want to rent for a day or a week, but to have it as a month, and if month is undefined, that should be number of days in any case. But I'm really opposed to that. I think it's going to hurt the little people. And I live next to 2 of the mega mansions, if you want to call them that, the houses with parking lots underneath. I don't like the looks of them. You'll hear about that later. But I have had no problem with the people that come in and rent. There's families. I hear little kids squeaking in the pools and things like that. And we only had to call the police once, about 2 years ago. And for all the hullabaloo about overcrowding and noise, that's an enforcement issue. That's not saying you can't rent the house for a short term. So, you gotta give the police the right tools and code enforcement the right tools, the right support. If they need more people to check on occupancy, we have Animal House, we have noise code. So we gotta, and once you know you have a problem house, stay on it. But don't punish everybody for the few. Thank you.
Sorry, I think you raised the hand.
Hey. Thank you, everyone.
My name is Steve Korzenowski, Korzenowski. I do have a local residence here, though my permanent residence is in Media, Pennsylvania. I live on Delaware Avenue, as Amy knows. I also have a rental property a block away across the street from you. There's two sides of this story for the short-term rentals that you heard tonight. I'm not surprised. There's a lot more passion tonight for both ways. And I think it all needs to be heard. But as you also heard, some might say how this is constructed with the appearance that it's to be jammed through at the end of 2021, though you say you've deliberated, you have. But this is forced, meeting last week, meeting tonight, put it in end of December. It seems a bit arbitrary. As an example, the town of Point Pleasant Beach, and specifically the council, is telling families and others that we don't want your business. We don't want Thanksgiving, we don't want Christmas, we don't want the holidays, we don't want you to come. Right. And some of those folks they can't afford, but these people plan 6 to 9 to 12 months ahead of time for weddings. And I'm already 70% booked for next year at my rental house. And half of those are weddings. So where I'm gonna go tell those people that they can't come? So one of the things that this doesn't address is what happens to the people that do have 2, 3, 4, and 5 day rentals? If this is put in force on January 1st, 2022, do I have to fire them as tenants?
We'll address it, but the answer is
But that's not addressed in the ordinance.
by the very nature of an ordinance, it's grandfathered in. The borough attorney,
Well, but
we'll talk about that.
But this is not.
Grandfathered in, it's ex post facto, so you can prove that you have other rentals in the court. Good luck.
That would be good.
What does that mean?
Please tell your name again for me and also your permanent residence.
My name is Steve, and KORZENOWSKI.
Okay.
I live at 350 Darlington Road in Media, Pennsylvania, and I have a home here at $2 Avenue in Point Pleasant. I spent about half my time here, and I'm here for all my rentals.
Where was that to?
$2 Avenue.
All right, thank you so much.
Just a couple other things. An owner like me takes full responsibility for if I screen them. No one under 25, no high school, no college. I've been doing this for 20 years, and now the council's going to tell me I can't do that. I do accept families, and I screen again. And so one thing I want to say is that please consider alternatives. Maybe you grandfather this for 2022 while you look at the codes and you look at how we could better make this a better town. I don't disagree with some of the things that you said. But the fact of the matter is that I think this, in my opinion, it's a bit rushed. And in my opinion, there has to be a middle ground that we all can benefit from to make this a better town as you like.
And I'll address the grandfathering at the end. Thanks for your comments. Any residents outside or anybody else? Oh, sorry, second.
Jennifer Malpass, 82 Trenton Avenue, in the beach. And I just want to say, I respect everyone's opinions. I think there's been a lot of important stuff said today. So I hope you'll listen to me too. As a resident of this town for over 10 years, I'm deeply concerned about the effect that short-term rentals have on our quality of life. I can personally attest to the negative results of these short-term rentals. Over the past 2 summers, my neighbor allowed weekend stays at his property. The renters typically were in town just to have a good time and were not respectful of properties and residents around them. I had to make several calls to the police department, they're all on file, regarding the loud noises late in the evening, partying all day and night, drug behaviors, foul language, and we have young kids living all around us, and those families weren't allowed to have their kids out during the day because they were hearing all the foul language. And this was just one small property next to the tracks. I can only imagine what happened to people. As new concepts develop, we as a town need to respond to changes in ways that sustain the purpose and way of life for our town. Airbnb and other home rental websites have gained popularity over the years, and consequences were not really known initially. But we can now note the effects of the past 2 summers in the residents' quality of life and must respond accordingly. I saw a comment from someone with a definite interest in keeping short-term rentals that said passing this ordinance would hurt local economy. I don't believe that. Our town has always tried to pride itself on its excellent school system, beautiful beaches, nice downtown, and family-oriented communities. That is what draws people here to live, to shop, and keeps our property values high. If the quality of life deteriorates, our families will leave, and the town will go downhill. We have enough short-term options in town with our hotels. We do not need more. We do not need to be another seaside. You have all worked so hard to increase and maintain the quality of life for the residents of Point Pleasant Beach, especially since Hurricane Sandy. And that is because of the dedication to our year-round residents. So please consider the options in this ordinance. For the people who have rental properties in town, be unhappy, yes, but the year-round tax-paying, school-attending residents will be forever grateful. Thank you.
Jennifer, thank you for emailing that after. Sir, in the back? All right. How are you?
Very good, thank you. My name is Mark Spinoni, it's CIP as in people, OLLONI. And I own 105 Parkway. My wife and I currently live in 7 Sapphire Road in Robbinsville, but that's only going to be temporary until I buy my second house here.
And what's that address in Robbinsville?
7 Sapphire Road. I've been coming here since the 50s as a kid, okay? We used to rent houses, second floors of houses. So the fact that somebody said that, you know, these short-term rentals are new, that wasn't the case. I used to come here two times a summer and rent houses. So, you know, we bought this house with the intent of moving here to Point Pleasant. So when I have my second house and I live in it, this won't apply. I hope it'll be, I don't know if it is only going to be if you own already, right? If you're ready, or will I be able to then retroactively do it? I guess my point here is that, and I agree with both sides. I read all the minutes in the last meeting. I've heard everybody what they said today. I understand all sides of the argument. I think, you know, and it's going to hurt me. I do rent my house, by the way, okay? And I use the RBO, and I just do weekly rentals in the summer. So I do have some weekend rentals during the off season. But it's been mentioned, Thanksgiving, I have families in. I have some families in on Christmas. To me, you know, and I'm here a lot. You probably saw me riding around in my golf cart with my 2 dogs. I do it all the time. I don't know if you've seen me. Okay, I'm here a lot, and I don't see this as a big problem. To me, in the summertime, is where you see all the noise and the ruckus in the summer. And what we're trying to do here is something in the off-season where it's quiet. I ride around, it's dead quiet. So what? So we're trying to fix a problem in the off-season when I don't see a problem in the off-season. To me, the noise and the ruckus is in the summer. So this ordinance is kind of like a little bit backwards. So here's what I recommend. Keep my 3 minutes, is that we table this for a year. And I don't think a good economic analysis has been done to understand the impact on businesses in the town, right? We've heard comments, but I don't think we've heard from business owners and what they think. It's going to hurt me as a landlord. It's going to bring in less tax revenues to town, right? So I think we should do an economic impact analysis, see what it really is. Is it big or is it small, right? And the second piece, and in that year we can do that, right? We collectively. And then the second piece is let's bring all of the landlords in. Let's sit down and talk about this. What can we do better?
That's time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. What can we do as better as landlords? All of our tenants personally. We read them all the rules. We make sure they understand the noise ordinances. If they're going to be loud, stay inside, right? That's the kind of stuff that we as landlords can do better, right? And keep this, and I think there's other ways to fix this problem than hurt the town economically by taking out all of these weekend rentals that we heard about in the off season, where you really do need the money, right? I mean, really, the off season is a quiet time. Let's keep some money coming in during that time.
I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Wendy, you got his spelling and everything?
I did, thank you.
Okay, is there anyone wants to speak next?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Childers. I live on
336 Curtis Ave in Point Pleasant Beach. I'm a local real estate broker with a brokerage in town. I strongly oppose this new ordinance as currently written. It's not to say there isn't a problem in town that mostly stems from short-term rentals. I do, however, believe there are different and better ways of achieving a more peaceful community with higher in-use home ownership. I feel the mayor and council should consult with town business owners, residents, landlords, and real estate brokers to come up with a new proposal. I would like to address some specific things in the ordinance that I think are written improperly. Part 7, I personally feel doubling the current rental licensing fee is a bit aggressive. For smaller units in town, a $300 fee can be equivalent to half a month's rent. Part 8, subsections A and B, this essentially goes against everything this country's justice system is built on. In the United States, one is innocent until proven guilty. This section states that a pending complaint awaiting a hearing is grounds enough for a rental license to not be issued. This means that one is guilty and being punished for something before they have a chance to defend themselves. I'm not sure if there's anything more un-American than this. In parts 14.2 and 14.3 states no rental or lease may be less than 30 days period during the period of September 30th to May 15th. This is the biggest issue of the new ordinance, and I do not understand why this is being proposed. Are off-season rentals that big of an issue here? I believe the mayor is looking at the full picture. This town is built upon and relies on tourist dollars. People come into town and shop at the stores, eat in the restaurants, and spend money. Sure, most of these visitors during the primary season, as stated, from May 15th to September 30th, but not all. We cater to weekend weddings year-round at the various venues in and around town. There are several events both in town and in the surrounding area that draw in tenants, and we're eliminating that. Not to mention there are countless families using short-term rentals for family getaways during the major holidays like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, President's Weekend, and Easter. This ordinance would eliminate these groups from coming to town and spending money when it is even most in the off-season. In part 14.6, allowing only residents who are present and actively living in town to rent for shorter periods during the aforementioned off-season is blatantly prejudiced against non-residents. We are all equal residents, second homeowners, and investment property owners. By allowing only present residents to participate in short-term off-season rentals, you are opening yourself and the town to a lawsuit. Clearly, this was not thought out. Additionally, what happens to residents purchasing investment property after this ordinance is passed? Part 15, subsection G. It is impossible for any landlord to be able to actively enforce where their tenants sleep. It should be made clear to tenants what the maximum occupancy is, but it's not physically possible for a landlord to police where their tenants decide to fall asleep. Subsection I. I'd like to know who came up with the decision that no more than one person can sleep in a bedroom under 100 square feet. A bedroom is defined as a room with at least 70 square feet with no less than a 7-foot horizontal measurement and an egress window. Nowhere, anywhere, does it state that only one person can sleep in an under 100 square foot bedroom. What happens in an older home, which typically has only small bedrooms, that has no bedroom over 100 square feet? Does a couple not get to sleep together? The occupancy of a room should not be based strictly off of an arbitrary square footage analysis. Part 20. I have nothing wrong with the listing of tenants and the content.
Yeah, just to give you a heads up, you're a minute over.
Okay. You want to stop?
Yeah, well, I think you can wrap it up.
Well, I think what you guys are trying to accomplish is good. I think how you're doing it is wrong. I think there's some common sense things that can be done to help the town, but as it's currently written, it's not there.
Thank you very much.
Oh, no.
I'm Robert Fessman. My address is 39 Waters Edge, Congers, New York.
I'm sorry, please spell your last name.
F-E-S-T-A.
And what was the town?
Congers, C-O-N-G-E-R-S.
We'll have two residents doing this. One resident, second.
I've been listening to all the speakers from 2 weeks ago until tonight also. Like the majority have voiced their opinion not to have these regulations on rentals, not yet. I've owned here at Point since 1974, almost 50 years, more than some of you are even old. I consider myself a resident, and the people that stay here, even for a week or 3 days, are our residents also, our residents. Our children, as well as the children of our renters, grew up in Point Pleasant Beach as much as they grew up in their own hometown. To not represent them would be prejudicial. And loving our neighbors is what we're supposed to do. If someone were to visit Yellowstone or Grand Canyon or Fort Lauderdale and be told that they have to stay a minimum of 1 month, it'd be ludicrous. That applies to our town too. People who come here are happy, and they leave happy. I've had honeymooners, Point Pleasant High School reunion people, workers for the Alzheimer's Fund. I've rented to a father and his son who've come here for 30 years to fish during a week in November. Just 1 week in November, 30 years. People are happy to go to the Shrimp Box, Spanos, Leone's. We provide our tenants with a list of all the fine restaurants and takeouts here at Point, complete with addresses and phone numbers. We know from their feedback that they go to these restaurants and provide them with a good deal of business. These renters can't afford or don't have the time to spend the whole month. The owners that bring these people to Point also give the borough a fairly high tax that eases the burden on our local residents. The owners and their tenants who rent from them give to all facets of our community: the churches, the restaurants, gas stations, fishing boats, hardware stores, and so on. 1/3 of my income that I live on comes from the off-season rental. It is not an extra part-time job. I have no other job. People should be allowed to work for their income. This resolution would not only take away a large portion of our livelihood, but also take away all the many vacations from all the renters who for many years think of Point Pleasant Beach as their home away from home. We should not take from the owners who give so much to our borough, but be thankful and appreciative of their contribution. Thank you.
Well said.
I think to go. Go ahead.
Katie Wilson, 54 Channel Drive, Point Pleasant Beach. Hi, Mayor, hi, Council. 3 minutes?
3 minutes.
I'll just make it as quick as I can. I was here at the last meeting, as you know, and I practically begged you to table this ordinance and create an advisory committee. Thanks again, Councilman Mygett, for trying to pass that. And I'm here again to please actually beg you to do the same thing. This ordinance, as it's written, I know that you want to help the residents. I know there's many people here who are opposed to short-term rentals. This is going to fail on its face when it goes before a judge. And it will go before a judge. Right here. It's wrongfully predicated the allowable use of the property upon the identities of its occupants. And I'm certain that the borough attorney is well aware that this is going to fall on its face. In other words, the zoning issue can't be predicated by the occupants, and that's what this is doing. This is going to fail. We're being led right into a lawsuit. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir? Anybody else? I see it. Okay.
My name is Lanza from Townhall, New York.
Lanza, L-A-N-Z-A.
L-E-N-Z-A.
I'm sorry?
L-E-N-Z-A.
And your address?
It's 251 Simon Avenue in Townhall, New York. I've been, I was born and raised in Staten Island, but I have been down in Manasquan my entire life, is where, basically I spent my summers. I want to echo a couple of the comments that everybody made here. I don't think there's anything, groundbreaking what I'm about to say, but, we have gotten good feedback from a lot of the people that we've had renting our house. We've brought people together from all over the country, spend holidays, spend weekends together. We had grandparents bringing their kids together from the Northeast, from Missouri, spending weekends with, weekends with their grandkids and holidays with their grandkids. We had families come together for the past Thanksgiving weekend. So I do think that, there are certain things that we can do maybe a little bit better with this ordinance. I don't think that the 30 days is necessarily feasible. I think for, like one of the last speakers just said, from a monetary standpoint and from a time away from their job and home standpoint, I just think that 30 days might not be the best solution. I think that, if we could do something where it's, shorter term rental, not necessarily 2 days, but I know people recommend 4 or 5 days. I think that's reasonable. I also think that the timing of the window could be extended. I know it's cold as a beautiful month down here. Again, I spent it in Manasquan down at the beach. I think that's still, prime beach month, many would consider. So I think that maybe September 30th is the right day, but before that forward to end of October, I think that obviously helps and gives everybody another month and lets people enjoy the beach for another month. I think there was, a lot of comparisons to Seaside. I don't really think that's fair for this town either. Actually, my family has, my daughter has a soccer tournament in Seaside every summer. I'm down there. That place is just all high-rise hotels with, hundreds of rooms. That's not what Point Pleasant Beach is. Point Pleasant Beach is family-oriented, where there's houses that could, house multiple families. So I don't think it's a fair comparison to say that it's going to turn into Point Pleasant. I don't think that's, with the structure here, is really the whole. I think that's it. Thank you for that.
Thank you for your time. Is there a resident on?
Hi, I'm Joseph Sickle, 201 New York Avenue, Point Pleasant Beach, and really proud to say that I'm a year-round resident of Point Pleasant Beach. Listen to everybody talking tonight and courteous to all the sides represented, but as a full-time resident, I'm in favor of this. In the wintertime, it's kind of nice in the fall and in the spring to be able to sleep with the windows open and not have to worry about the noise emanating from a rental house that we have no control of, that may be across the street or next door. That's not why we're here. We're here to enjoy the town all year long. I joke around with people that ask me where I live, and I tell them that for 9 months out of the year, it's heaven on earth. And for 3 months, we tolerate the madness that's down here. I don't want to see the madness extended beyond that period. It's bad enough we have to deal with it for time in the summer, when all the resources of the town are stretched extremely thin. I don't think they should have to be stretched thin all year long. And I do applaud the mayor and the council for trying to protect the citizens of Point Pleasant Beach.
Thank you for coming in.
Hello, my name is Anthony Mann, M-A-H-O-N, 130 Ocean Avenue. I live in Point Pleasant for 8 months of the year. I bought a house here about 4 years ago after moving from Philadelphia. And when moving here, I was looking at other towns. Most of my family's in Seaside Park, which is very quiet and closes a lot in the winter. And I moved and I bought a house in Point Beach because of the year-roundness and the people here all winter in the restaurants and the year-roundness. So I think it will dissuade, if this ordinance goes through, it will dissuade younger purchasers and investors, well, people who want to live here for 8 months, but also make funds off their property like me for 4 months. I'm a teacher. I cannot afford to live in Point Beach if I don't rent my house. Some of my rental money comes from wedding weekends, the See Here Now Music Festival, from the seafood weekend, from all types of stuff that would affect my income and ability to even live in this town otherwise. So that's going to affect me being able to even live here as a young person in this room and as a homeowner here. Also, I just want to say as a comment, I feel like the issue is communication. As I'm reading through the minutes, I see one of my neighbors was here last week complaining about the Airbnb and the police are managing it and the owners are nowhere nearby. I never received one phone call from that neighbor and they're here complaining about it. I mean, potentially it's not mine, it could be a different one, but it's a common occurrence. The investor was up here and people no one's communicating to the owners when there's an issue, which I think needs to happen. I am friendly with people in my lane, I let them know, and it's, when I see my neighbor complaining here last week, getting written, I'm gonna go and say, excuse me, can you reach out to me first? Was this about me? Can you talk to me first? We're humans, I lived here for 8 months, we're next door to each other, 2 doors down. So what's going on? I think that the owners, that the rentals, the landlords are not given enough information to manage their properties. If I don't want people more than enough having parties in my house, I want them to go out and eat and be in the neighborhood, not have a party in my house. So more information, if they're too loud, we need to know. Landlords need to be included in the conversation as well, and not just have to be complained about and then a blanket ordinance thrown over everyone. So I'm against the ordinance.
Appreciate you thinking. The resident who wants to speak? Councilman-elect?
Well, Mike Ramos, 420 of USAF, on Pebble Beach. I'm a year-round resident. I'm also a 7-year member of the Board of Education in Pebble Beach and currently serve as the president. And I think that as a resident, I'm here as a resident tonight, I don't represent the Board of Education. But as a resident, I'm for the quality of life, and I wholeheartedly support this ordinance. I think that one big factor to look at, and I look at it from a school standpoint for our schools. We have 2 award-winning schools. Our high school is ranked #1 in Ocean County. It's very highly ranked in the state of New Jersey. Okay, both schools are Apple schools of distinction and just got that. Only 500 schools worldwide have that designation, and our grammar school and our high school have it. And that's from the hard work and dedication of an outstanding board, teachers, administrators, and a town that supports it. And I think the bigger issue here is both schools have enrollment that is decreasing year after year. We rely on tuition students to keep the lights on. And that's a direct result of seasonal rentals that are taking over the homes that are owned by, or previously owned by, year-round residents. I totally understand about making money. I am a 35-year, and currently am a hotel executive. I work for Hilton Hotels, okay? And I know all the hotel owners in town because they constantly pick my brain. I think the value of our homes is directly tied to the quality of our schools. And the quality of our schools is directly tied to having actual students in those schools, okay? Not more tourism-based rental homes in Point Pleasant Beach. Let's get these homes to year-round, people that want to live here year-round and want to contribute to the town and continue to help the town grow. And the decrease is happening, and it's getting worse, and it's getting very concerning. So I think that I wholeheartedly support this one.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you. So, go ahead.
My name is Dwayne Watlington. I'm here representing the New Jersey Shore Rentals Coalition. We are here tonight to voice our opposition to this ordinance. For a lot of the reasons the realtor that testified before said, there's a lot of things wrong with the way this is written. We'd like to extend our consultation to the council if you should decide to table this and try to come up with something that better fits both the residents and non-residents and those that rent. I'm empathetic on both sides. I personally own vacation rentals on Long Beach Island, so you might consider me an investor. But when I bought my house, we had always rented on Long Beach Island. And after we rented, we were able to buy a house right after Sandy, but we couldn't afford it. We had to rent it out in order to keep it. And now, 10 years later almost, we're getting ready to retire there next year. So, our dreams, we vacation there, we rented, and now we're going to live there too. So, vacation rentals aren't new. You guys call them Airbnbs. Airbnbs new, yeah. And I think that's the problem, okay? Vacation rentals, you know, I grew up as a kid, we used to rent for a week on 32 O Street in Seaside. It was a basement apartment that we rented. And I talked to my dad tonight before this meeting, because I asked him, I said, you know, where did you guys go on vacation in the 50s? And he's like, the Jersey Shore. So this is nothing new. You know, vacation rentals in shore towns have been here my father's whole life, and he's 76 years old. It's just changed a little bit. You know, now, it used to be all through realtors, and now with the internet, I mean, we're all buying from Amazon too. We would change some things. So I think there's a better approach to this, and myself and the coalition, like our sirs, we're sorry to relate to the party. We wish we knew about this earlier. We could have lent some guidance. One thing I want to share with you, I think could be a quick solution to this, would be, you know, to not put all these onerous, you know, regulations out, but to do maybe a definition of a professionally managed unit. And this is something that came up when we fought the short tax. Our organization is a group that was behind getting Governor Murphy to actually cut taxes in the state for direct by rent owners. You know, we lobbied for about a year, and we got that law changed. And part of that law, there was a professionally managed unit clause too. And that was to stop the investors. Now, you put that at a level, 4 or 5 units or whatever, to truly get the investors. I don't feel me buying one house that I rent out when my kids are going through college so that I can then move there when I retire. I should be considered an investor. So that's what I like to say, and you know, thank you for giving me the time to testify. Watlington, WATLING,
New Jersey Shore Rentals Coalition?
New Jersey Shore Rentals Coalition from Long Beach Island, correct?
Thank you.
Okay. Any residents?
My name is Bob Malone. I've contacted you many times.
Your address, please.
My family has been here, address, at 26 Central Avenue. My family has had rental properties since 1948. It was my in-laws. They rented, and at that time, they could rent for weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, half a season. Today, the rentals are not like that anymore. People, my grandkids are expensive. They spend half the summer involved in athletics, so they can't come. People can't come down for a week or two because of that. Others, they want to go to other vacations, Disney World and everything else. So, but their people still like the shore, so they're coming down for 4, 5 days whenever they can. We have people, I use Airbnb, VRBO, but I monitor every rental that comes in. I have people coming and they want to rent, and I refuse to rent them because I get it just from the way they present themselves and I will not rent them. But when they come in, I tell them, this is what you have to do. And I have stopped. I've had a lot of people that they thought they were going to have a lot of people come down and that. I said, no, you have a limit. That's what you have. And I live in the house in front of the building that I rent. So the town has all these ordinances that they have to enforce. And that will control. I mean, these investors are coming in. They have to get a CO. If they have more than those CO people, then the town has to enforce it. Because that's the only way it's going to. Limiting them to 4 or making it 7, it's not going to eliminate the problem. The people will come down for 7 days instead of 4 days. I've had people that have come from Ireland, England, California for weddings, for family gatherings and that, and there's no problem. And then they come down, it's only I've had people from all over the country, and they rent them through VRBO, Airbnb. You need to use them to rent because they have the bigger market. You just have to control them the way they rent. I've had our Airbnb and VRBO approach me, well, you can open up your rentals more. I said, no, this is the rules I follow. that the town requires, and I don't change it. And if you don't want to rent it, then I won't rent to you.
And Bob, that's your 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, thank you. Anybody else? I saw a hand in the back first.
So far, a great meeting. Thanks to everybody participating. Steve, Hyduke, Hyduke, and the legal address is 136 Upper Creek Road, Stockton, New Jersey.
Thank you.
And I own property at 204 Randall Avenue. And let me give just a little bit of background first. Before I was married, my wife lived here in Point, in the borough, on Herbertsville. She used to be an OR nurse in what used to be the Point Pleasant Hospital. Got married, I dragged her away from here, she never forgave me. She always wanted to come back. So what we did was we bought the house on Randall Avenue with the intention of being a secondary house, with the intention of eventually being retired. We ended up not using it as much as we thought we were going to. Started renting it with the purpose of paying down the mortgage, paying the utilities, and all that. And once you get into that game, you can't use it that much. You're only allowed 2 weeks to use it yourself once it becomes a rental property. So we didn't use it's IRS code.
Okay.
So once we started renting, we became full-time renter. We've owned it since 2010. We're currently rented until Labor Day, full. 100% repeat tenants. Most of them have been with us 5-6 years. I've got 2 sets of tenants who will be with us for the 9th season. These people are extremely well vetted. Most of them were 3 generations. Grandparents, kids, grandkids. Excellent tenants. Now, I've never rented or used VRBO or Airbnb. Stopped using VRBO once Expedia took over and it turned into the organization from hell. As our friend from who fought the tax strings pointed out, even state differentiates between Airbnb, Vrbo, and direct rentals. Main things I wanted to point out were, I think, were phrasings in the bill were wrong, would be addressed better. It says that the COs will run a calendar year terminating on December 31st. My current CO ends in June. So I don't know how it's going to work if all the COs are going to terminate on December 31st. There's two references to it.
Can you address that at the end?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You have to list all the tenants on your CO application. That's the way it used to be done a few years ago. And the town dropped that, and you only have to now, the way the application reads is that you have to know the names and addresses of people. You don't have to submit it. So I don't know if you're going back to the old way, or if that just isn't phrased right. In 13.20, it says that you have to list tenants on a door. And it's ambiguous as to whether it's the current tenant or all tenants. If it's all tenants, then that's a definite privacy issue. And I have objection to putting anything on my door. I have a very nice door. I'm not going to deface it. When we had to put out things for garbage collection.
You're at 4.5 minutes. I'm sorry. I'm trying to let you finish the point, but.
Can I make a very important one?
Sure.
All our tenants were primo. I had one exception in summer of 19. They came to us through a realtor that should have been vetted. I eventually found out that there may have been 60 people in my backyard. I don't want that in my house. I don't want that in my neighborhood. And I know nobody in Point wants it in this town. The objection that I had, and I raised it at a previous meeting of the non-resident taxpayers, is I wasn't notified. I got a note in the mail 2 weeks after these people left. If there's a problem at my house, I want immediate notification. I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the morning. If there's 60 people in my backyard, I can act on it. If I don't know about it until 2 weeks later, I can't.
And point made and understood, but we're at over 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
And I'll just address that one thing. We spoke with the police a week or so ago, and they plan on making that a priority, of notifying homeowners going forward in the new year and being more proactive about that. Sir, go ahead.
My name is Michael Brown, 333 Grand Street, New Jersey City.
333 Grand Street,
New Jersey City.
and it's, Heffron.
HBFFERON. So thank you. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to listen to some people have different opinions on this matter. I started a business in the middle of COVID, Shorehouse Maintenance. We are professional vacation rental managers. And I think there's definitely a need for understanding the quality of life. The beginning of this says that the borough seeks to promote and protect the health and safety and welfare of borough residents and visitors. And that's absolutely a priority. As a professional vacation rental manager, that's our number one concern. Hearing stories about 60 people in the backyard is terrifying. That's, as a resident, as a guest of a neighboring property, as just me walking down the street, that's not safe, it's not condoned. But what's being passed in this ordinance is everything against rentals, everything against what should be done responsibly for rental. And there's a big difference between responsibly renting a property and just passing ordinances to ridiculous. This past season, we had over 300 guests at our property, and I can tell you firsthand that, age limits, guest requirements, notice of tenants, like all of those things are extremely important, but they're not being addressed here. What's being addressed is just strictly a ban on timing. And I don't think that's fair to the residents, to the investors, and I think that this as a whole should just be tabled for some time to discuss and understood exactly what the needs are. There's a lot of people here that are speaking out against it, as am I, because putting just a 30-day ban doesn't solve for any of those needs. Quality of life, noise. There's a lot that can be done to solve for those issues, but this is not the answer to that. And I just ask that the board, that everyone takes the time to maybe table this for some time and listen to the needs and solve for some of the actual issues. What are the underlying issues? Noise, absolutely an issue. Hearing 50 people at property, absolutely an issue. As a professional manager, we're on site. We're accountable. All of our guests are registered with the township. You have, as a business owner, our contact information, my personal cell. We'll be on site if there's an issue. There's also a big difference between a resident, someone who's residing at a property for 30 years or more, and a guest. We're giving all of the legal, benefits to what our guests, now treating them as residents. That's not really fair to properties either. We're taking away that from the owners. I just think there's a lot that should be looked at this. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Residents that haven't gone out in the hall or anything like that? Nope. Okay. Yes, sure. No, sorry. Hey, no, I think that's not too bad.
Tim Allen, 146 Ocean Avenue, you guys know how I feel. You've heard from a ton of my clients, and I just would love for you guys to come up with some kind of compromise, because I think that there are bad investors, but there are people who are our neighbors. The bestest who are up here about that stuff, let me say, this house right after, my house was right after Sandy. I'm gonna start crying because I love that guy so much, but he's owned houses in this town for as long as my family owned houses in this town. The only reason I'm standing here is because my parents rented. I loved living here. I came part-time. I put some money into that house. I built that house because it was a rental property that I grew up coming to. This is my home, and a lot of people in the audience who don't have physical addresses here, it's their home too. And I just want you to consider that and not ruin it for them, because a lot of those people won't be able to afford to keep their homes if you keep a 30-day minimum.
Good evening. My name is Joe Abate. I live at 22 Shenandoah Drive, North Caldwell, New Jersey. I have a home at 63 Harvard Avenue.
Shenandoah Drive,
North Caldwell and 63 Harvard Ave. I've been paying taxes in this town for 34 years, and I've been proud to do that. I want to commend this board, the mayor, et cetera, for identifying and acknowledging December 7th. I think that's wonderful, including the gentleman who spoke. I do want to say, however, that I believe that the folks that you acknowledged on December 7th, the military, the people that lost their lives, would be dismayed if they were to find out that you were supporting, or at least had for discussion, a resolution that separated the community between resident and non-resident. I don't know how you could possibly do that in good conscience on this night of all nights. I want to focus just on two quick things, and I'll get out of here at the front. Number one, I am against the ordinance. That's number one. I have folks coming into my home tomorrow night, a wedding. I have folks who have been repeat customers for Christmas and New Year's. I'd like to know how this ordinance, if approved, would affect that. That's my first question. Also, I would like to know basically what the timeline for this is. So if a resolution is published, how long does that take? And when would that ultimately go into effect? Because I feel it would be really unjust dealing with folks who have weddings to go to or celebrating holidays, and they'll be removed. I want you to know that I vigorously support most of the discussions that we're here, including the folks that are for the resolution. They've had some very strong points. And I agree with the lady who just spoke. I think it's time for you to come to some type of resolution compromising what's going on. Thank you.
Hi, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the great job you're doing there to keep our community a hometown. I've been living here for 25 years. I've raised two of my children here. I'm very blessed to live here in this community. But as other speakers have said, the difference between us and other beach communities is we are a hometown. We're not seasonal. We're not dead in the winter. We function year-round. Rentals are part of the beach community. We are a shore community, but we are a shore family community. Therefore, I feel that rentals are still going to exist. We just have to definitely structure the rentals for families that are in residential areas that are just popping up, weekend partying. It's not what we bought and invested ourselves. We're investors too. We live here. It's our community. So I totally think that this has to move forward. I think it's a very hard position that every one of you are on there. I feel I'm part of it, although I'm not there yet. So it is a hard, and we're torn, and we're trying to do the right thing for all investors as well. But at the same time, we can't destroy what we have going forward on this community. God bless you all.
Thank you very much.
Hi, how are you?
Patty and Blake, Coltsmith, New Jersey, 1606 East Street, behind the dark bar. I'm sorry.
Okay, please spell your last name.
INGLESE.
And your address again?
313, which one? Point? Both. 313 Laird Road, Coltsmith. LAIRG Road, 1606 East Street. 1606 East Street, 25 feet behind the arc.
Thank you very much.
Everyone who has spoken tonight has a valid point. What I don't understand is how a decision can be made
counting all of you up there and wondering how you guys have been affected so deeply to make such a harsh judgment on what's going on. I can't tell you how many families we've helped out in town that were rebuilding that we've taken into our rentals. Just by talking to other people in town, knowing other people who needed help, and we were able to rent our house to them so that they could rebuild and do what they need to do. So I really just think we have to all step back. We have to take a look at what's going on. Any town that has rentals has problems. We all know that. I mean, we'd be naive to stand here and think we don't know that. But to just lay down a law that, surprisingly enough, a lot of people don't know what's going on is shocking to me. I have to thank the police department and your DPW in this town. Amazing, respectful. The guys that handle the garbage in our town here, I can't even tell you how polite, how courteous, how efficient. They work with everyone, police beyond. We can never thank them and pay them enough. But I think we need to realize that we have to work together. And, you know, again, a complaint is a complaint. If there's something going on, I am shocked to hear that. Nobody calls the police. You guys don't call the police and say, my God, something's going on, and, you know, there are 60 people jam-packed into a backyard. I don't care what town we live in. We do call the police. Do we want to waste their time? No, but that is what they're there for, and they work so well with everyone. I think we have to really appreciate one another. We have to really listen to one another, and I just cannot believe that this is just going to be decided upon by a council like that. I mean, I guess obviously only one person up there owns the rent. That's what I'm understanding. Thank you.
First, last meeting, I wanted to take it back because the things were said, and I had already used my allocated time. I've also communicated to you and the council. I'm sorry, Kevin Dolan, 102 Vladimir Avenue, Interlake, New Jersey. I own 100 New Jersey. I don't know if I'm the only person, but I've been on both sides of the fence. I came down to the Jersey Shore as long as I can remember. I became a full-time resident in Spring Lake, New Jersey in 1953. I have wonderful memories. I can identify with your goal of maintaining that quality of life. As I articulated in my letter to you, though, the dots aren't connected. There's two separate issues here. One of them I see is an enforcement issue, and the other one is an affordable housing issue. And I believe the council has to take some responsibility for you for that, because you're the ones that are approving the subdivisions of one lot into 3 lots.
That would be the zoning board, that wouldn't be the council.
You have no influence on that?
No, we're legally bound not to
I
have
stand
any.
corrected, but you should be putting pressure on them, because that certainly is what's contributing to it. When I hear the gentleman that initiated this, last meeting that said Airbnb 43, 30, 22, I thought it was bingo. But my feeling there is, we get a license every year, and the inspector clearly puts on that license how many people we can have in that house. And I don't know about anybody else, but with the fear of God, I'm not gonna jeopardize that license if I'm told I can only have 12 people in my house by running it to 43. Another point that occurred last kind of astonished me, at the risk of being too dramatic, is someone asked the question, how many times was the animal house ordinance enforced? And I believe I heard, and I circled back with some of the other people in the room, in 3 years, never. Now that's appalling. You have an animal house ordinance, and if it was enforced vigorously, I guarantee you, you would not have the people up here complaining as much as they are. Thank you very much.
Any residents that haven't spoken yet? Oh, Councilman Cavanero?
Dave Cavanero, 118 Parkway.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. For the record, I am for the ordinance. I been here long enough to see rentals that were only one of communities between our Avenue and the boardwalk. Those are weekly, not weekends or days. Sometimes there was a rental, then came the group rental. I heard they seemed to be a problem, then they were, and the council took action, and now they have been curtailed. I've heard many nice stories about landlords who are doing a great job, and the percentages are coming down. But bottom line, these buildings are hotels. They pay a hotel motel tax because the state recognizes them as a hotel. When I walk out of my house, I see my neighbors in the morning. I say hello. I walk past with my dog. I'm not gardening, I see them. I don't want to live next door to a hotel, but I might not have the choice when somebody else buys one of the other houses in my neighborhood and turns it into an Airbnb. Not because they're bad people, it's a hotel. And I don't want to keep those hotels. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else? I'll applaud everyone of being very, very well mannered and letting everybody get their turn in and measuring everything on both sides.
My name is Robin Salvati. I live at 5432 Via Olis, South North California. Please repeat that. Sorry.
Spell your last name and repeat your address.
So last name is Selvagi, and the address is 5432 Via Olis, South North California. Via OLAS.
How's it over?
California.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I was born and grew up not too far from here, but essentially lived on the beach here. Life took me out of state, but when we had enough savings, we chose to come here to buy. We purchased a sandy damaged house that sat vacant for 7 years. No resident family bought it. We did, and it is now a vibrant house repaired that welcomes wonderful families to Point Beach when I can get my brother out of it. Yet we are being vilified for investing our savings into this community and paying Point Beach property taxes every year. The intent of the proposed ordinance is to control which property owners may rent their properties and how they may be rented in an effort to transform the character of the residential occupancy and ownership in town. In doing so, the ordinance would deny a fundamental attribute of the property ownership to nearly all residential property owners in the borough. The unreasonable and discriminatory licensing requirements imposed by the proposed ordinance clearly violate well-established New Jersey law. The proposed ordinance also improperly imposes discriminatory restrictions for owner-occupied dwellings. The proposed ordinance also permits a discriminatory housing practice in violation of the Fair Housing Act and the New Jersey law against discrimination. The ordinance also would be invalid and unconstitutional in that improperly and arbitrarily targets the non-resident owners of short-term rental properties as compared to the resident property owners, in violation of our constitutional rights to equal protection under the 14th Amendment. These rights are protected by the state and federal constitutions and statutory laws. The prevailing homeowner bringing an action against Point Beach under the New Jersey Civil Rights Act to vindicate rights protected by the state and federal constitutions and statutory laws is entitled to any damages, civil penalties, injunction, or other appropriate relief, as well as reasonable attorney's fees. I appreciate the council's efforts for this community. It's not easy. However, this ordinance is a huge misstep, and I strongly urge the council to table the ordinance for reconsideration of the details before wasting taxpayer dollars defending an ordinance that clearly violates NJ Ladd, the Fair Housing Act, and the 14th Amendment. Thank you so much.
Anybody else?
Kevin Agaman, AGA, Beach. I still have time up between four residents. I have a unique situation. I own a multifamily. I rent them in the winter, and I enjoy one of the units in the summer. My home was a sandy ravaged home, and it sat vacant for years, went to foreclosure, and it's auction. A flipper came in, he ran out of funds, I came in, I helped him out, bought it from him, and I raised the value of my street block, of all the other homes. There's a lot, I was up here last, 2 weeks ago, and my opinion hasn't changed, to object to the ordinance. But, one of the things that really stands out is that 30 day. The 30-day winter minimum opens us up to losing our eviction rates. After the occupancy exceeds 30 days, you can't evict. Under that, we still have. And as far as the platforms go, like I said, the last time I was up here, we have first right to refusal. We have to accept the reservation. We highly vet and protect our investment and the community. Other than that, everything still stands how I spoke last time. There's other things I want to mention, but it's just repetitious to what you're at. And that's where I'm at.
You've got it, you've still got another, okay.
No, that's it. I mean, I've already said everything, and so has everybody else that I agree with, so, on the objection side.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, oh, man.
Ann Jocelyn, Jocelyn. Current residence is 11 Willow Terrace in Verona. And about a year ago today, we bought a house at 5 Bandy. So when we put the offer on the house, it was an investment property. So we come down here, we rent it, whatever. By the time we closed on the house, it was our home. A gentleman earlier today said he was born here and wanted to die here. Wasn't born here, but I wouldn't mind dying here. So being able to rent out the property right now makes that goal possible for me. We don't want to rent it during the winter for months at a time or to a full-time renter who will not be a permanent resident because they're only going to be here for those 9 months. Because then they're going to go and then summer residents are going to be summer renters. So the idea of getting a permanent resident in there isn't something at 1 month minimum. We also don't want to rent it for a full month because we want to come down here. We met people like Doug Vitale and Arlene Testa before we knew they were council members, and we wanted to be part of the community that they're in. I talked to Arlene about the municipal alliance grant and want to be part of this community and help her with that. So to be lumped in with this investor, not investor, permanent resident, not permanent resident, I think just muddies the whole community that we fell in love with.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Just for my own knowledge, and I probably should have asked other people this. How many weekends in the off-season do you rent?
When I don't block it, without asking my husband, into this is our first year too, so we didn't, the spring we used it, and that was partly because we wanted to see if it worked as a home. And that's the other thing, we made it a home, so when we have short-term renters, whether it's a minimum of 3 or 4 days in the off-season or the weeks during the summer, they're guests in our home. And we always refer to them as, you're a guest in our home. And I think that helps to set the tone of what we expect of them. So we rented most weekends, except for the bonfire weekend that we took for ourselves, to again be part of the community.
And when you say most, you mean from this off-season to present, if we're not in
so I mean, for us, it was
February.
only the fall is the experience that I
Okay.
had. We didn't do anything in the spring because we were just kind of getting our bearings on this. So we rented most of the weekends through mid-October. We've had some other inquiries. I know we had friends that were down for Thanksgiving. We were away, so we didn't want to rent because we were away, so we couldn't be here to, kind of keep an eye on things. So it's not a lot, but it's definitely, several weekends. And I feel like looking at that May 15th, the only group I'm renting to a week for is probably college kids or a mom who's renting the house for their kids for prom week. And they're willing to pay a full week's rent even if they're only staying for a weekend because there's going to be 20 of them cramming into my house, which is not what I want. I want a family, but a family's not coming till school. I might get a nice couple or like girls' weekend, whatever, a weekend in May, but they're not coming for a whole week. So That's really all I can say, you know, we want to be part of this community, and the only way for us to be part of this community is to be able to rent, but not be forced to rent what I consider long-term.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just hold on one second, I just want to write something down. Okay, go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, hi. I'm Carol McKay, and I live at 399 Letty Circle. I hope that was 399 SALETTI Circle in Rivervale, New Jersey. And my house here is 54 minutes. Thank you. Okay. So I've been in this town since 2004. I have family in this town. I have friends in this town. We love it here, all right? We want to retire here. And, you know, we've got some personal stuff that's going on. And renting a house allows us to live right now, okay? And I can answer the question that you asked this lady about how much do I rent. So in the month of November, right, I rented for a 3-day wedding at the beginning of November. Then I rented 4 days for Thanksgiving. And right after that, there was another wedding, and I had a 2-day rental. That right there helped me to pay my mortgage, okay? That's what I rented. December, I've got nothing going on. I've got repeat people for 3 days over New Year's Eve. And the thing that I don't understand is I have a 6-bedroom Victorian. My CO says 12 people. I am like a crazy person. You know, they can only have 12 people at my house. I have a pool in the back, right? I back up to the Point Beach Motel. I look out at the mini mall, and there's a Jenkinson's parking lot. It's a vacation area, right? But how do people have a 4-bedroom, like I read this somewhere, they have a 4-bedroom house and they're renting to 20 people. I don't know how that's legal. Like, I'm terrified. And I don't know how that they get away with that. And it actually annoys me. You know, I rent to families. I don't want partiers. I've had people ask me, oh, can we have a prom week? No, you can't. You can't have parties. I really focus my clientele. So that piece of what you guys are talking about, I'm with you. I don't want parties. I want families here. The reason we bought in this town is because it's a family town. One day my husband and I will retire here, you know? But this month thing is going to kill us. And for me, and how I rent my property, and how I love that house and love this town, it feels like a slap in the face. And that's really it, you know? There's got to be a different way. And you know what else in my life, what I've realized? Bad people that screw around with the rules, they always figure out another way. It's like Ann Layburn said, she used to be my neighbor. I used to live on 309 New Jersey Avenue. It's going to hurt me.
Understood. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Oh, you already spoke. I'm sorry.
30 seconds.
Nope, not even 30 seconds. Sorry. Everybody wants to get out of here.
I don't want to grow up, but. Deanna Savino, Savino. What's your first name? Deanna, Deanna. Savino, Savino, right. 68 Tricentennial Drive in Freedom. Thank you. 2 of our properties, we pay taxes on 4. 2 of them are rental. I love meeting my people. You asked, I'm rented all of November, both houses. Thanksgiving, without your Airbnb, VRBO, I know that could be people that take advantage and don't care. I had, for Thanksgiving, a family come from Illinois that has family here who would have never known my house is there. A family come from Maryland that had family here. Neither one of them have seen their families in 10 years. I love being a part of that. I text my renters. I am so present
I'm from South Village. You mess with my house, I tell them, respect my neighbors, respect this town, and respect my home, because it is my home. I am here. I text them. I love their story. Never have I had weddings. This, I think it was October and November, I had 3 weddings at Clark Lane. This weekend just passed, I had a funeral. I give things. I like to get involved, and I like to give them things, make them remember how great Point Pleasant is. So I feel the same way. If you have people stay for 7 days, you can have bad people stay for 7 days. If the landlords are present, maybe we can get a committee. All of these landlords to me sound like they care, like I care. I don't rent to anybody on the 28th. My niece wants to rent the house for prom weekend. It is a no. My niece, absolutely not. I don't want anybody to party in my house. So I just think if we maybe meet, get a committee, get the rules down, I'm a rule follower, and I think that I have beautified on Nibbleton Ocean. I think we have made the neighborhood look better. It leaves every day. My house in Freehold is awful, because I spend more time here beautifying these houses. So I just hope that we can come to, I get it, I don't want the partiers and everybody else either. I see people walk by, I see bad things happen, it annoys me. So if we can just come to some rules, I don't know what we can do, but I have people come Friday through Sunday, Tuesday to Wednesday, and then again Friday to Sunday. It takes me more time to flip the houses than, so I just hope that, thank you for listening, it is a tough job, and I get you'll always say, you'll never see these people again, I'm sure, but.
Well, you shouldn't have been nervous. You
I
expressed your
can't.
point, you expressed your point very well.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
How you doing? My name is Scott Boland. Reside at 105 Trenton Avenue, Point Pleasant. I own 637 Arnold Avenue. It's a tough issue. I see this as a tough issue. I actually support an ordinance. I don't really support this ordinance. I don't think it's very well written, very discriminatory. But I understand the point, right? You're seeing residential properties turn into, in residential zone areas, turn into commercial properties. I see this as a zoning issue. And if you want to take a residential property and turn it into a hotel or an Airbnb, you should apply for a zoning permit. And maybe you should do it every year. And if that becomes a problem, you reapply. And you count on the zoning board. Now, as you stated, you appoint the people on the zoning board, right? And I have an issue. If you seem to be against Airbnbs, but I run into this issue where I bought an Airbnb hotel going next to me, which was illegal, didn't meet the building code, in the state of New Jersey as a hotel, and yet I got personally attacked by my neighbor, telling me they're going to ruin my life and destroy it because I showed up at the planning board meeting to fight an Airbnb, and then after it got approved, you personally attacked me on Facebook saying I'm holding up all downtown because I oppose an Airbnb, which is I find it very hypocritical, as now you're pushing an ordinance to fight Airbnbs. And Jack, you voted for the Airbnb on Arnold Avenue, which is a hotel, which doesn't meet the state requirements of a hotel.
And I'll just remind the entire council, we can't talk about anything dealing with zoning.
What are you talking about?
Or zoning issues.
We're talking the zoning board.
Yeah, he's talking about something that has nothing to do with this.
Okay, but we can't discuss anything about the zoning board.
I resent you making that comment. Did you not approve? I resent you bringing that up.
All right, guys, let's just.
Okay, if you had objections, you voice them at the Board of Adjustment meeting, not here. I am pointing that out. I think this is a zoning issue. Kevin?
I'm aware of it, I'm watching.
Yeah. So, my question is, I see a
lot of hypocritical things being done. I actually support an ordinance of the sort. I just don't actually think this ordinance is very well written. It's just, you know, and I find it a little hypocritical. I'm kind of personally insulted when I went to find an Airbnb hotel in downtown Point Pleasant Beach that didn't meet the zoning, didn't qualify under the zoning laws, didn't qualify under the state code for a hotel, didn't qualify as the OSHA laws for providing a bathroom for the employees of the hotel, and I got personally attacked, and it got approved anyways by the zoning board. So, I mean, I just don't understand. I'm confused. What's the goal here? We really want to get rid, I think it's a good plan to get rid of.
The goal is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our residents.
I think you gotta do it. Not at this level. Pass the zoning law that says if you want to be an Airbnb, you gotta go to the zoning.
Okay, all right, from the audience, we're not gonna jump in now.
So, if that's the case, pass the law saying, if you want, when you buy a property, you want to be an Airbnb, you go apply for zoning permit to get an Airbnb. Make it every year. So if somebody's property becomes a constant problem, they can address it next year. And this lets people, because a lot of the residents in town became residents because they couldn't afford a property, and they invested in the property, started off as a landlord, and evolved into the property. So I think that's where it needs to be dealt with at the zoning level, to solve both problems. So when you have a resident that, you know, nobody wants a hotel next to a private house. And I understand it, I think it's a valid reason. It's a resident zoned area, residential property in a resident zone area, when you can turn it, your next door neighbor's property into a hotel, it's a hotel. Whether it's Airbnb or not, you rent the room out at night, or you rent it out for a weekend, it kind of becomes a hotel.
Okay, that's time though. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, anybody else? All right, hearing none. Oh, Dennis? Hearing none. Dennis, how are you?
Dennis LaPlante. I'm a resident, 1429 Oceanfront. So, I sent an email to all the members of town council. Unfortunately, Mr. Basola, I didn't have yours, so I didn't get one to you. But there were just a few things that I'll echo what Kim said and a few others about potential for compromise related to the number of days, particularly in the off-season. I think your effort, particularly setting the 7 days in the summer, I think is fine. And I think it'll solve some problems. I don't think we need 1 and 2 day rentals. I think we can by some of the ordinance you're addressing. But there are a lot of parts of the ordinance, I think, that, could be amended to make this a better piece of legislation. So let me quickly mention, we talked about this, Mayor, I know, but the attorney's comment and retort to a previous speaker about contracts that have been executed for next year.
Since we're at the end, and I'll give you an extra 30 seconds of it. My intent with this ordinance is that existing contracts that can be proven are grandfathered. That's what my expectation was when it was written, and that is what I expect to enforce as the mayor of this governing body. So I just want to make that clear. And I'm only saying that because you're the last one that's speaking. So unless somebody else raises their hand.
But there was a.
But I'm going on the record right now saying that existing rentals that can be proven through correspondence, contracts, everything like that, should be grandfathered.
Okay, so you don't think we need to say proper provision in the ordinance?
I think if I go on the record and say it, that shows intent, right?
And I'm in complete agreement with you, Mr. Mayor, they just have to prove it in the courtroom, that's all.
Hold on, let's just clarify. You are not saying that everybody needs to go to court to be able, if Dennis goes to the building department, and Dennis says, I have a contract, here's the date, here's the email correspondence that goes along with it, and the building department goes, okay, That,
The building department, like all officers, have discretion in enforcement of the law.
okay.
But individuals who bring things in which are forgeries will not be given to Exactly. You should expect that there will be folks who will try to get around the ordinance by pretending that they had things booked before.
Of course, but with electronic communication and with electronic records and everything on the line and online places, we in theory could call up Airbnb and VRBO and verify. So the building department is gonna have discretion on that, and I'm stating what our intent.
Right.
So please, and that, I'm not even gonna take that minute that I just spoke or 2 minutes of your time. Thank you, please.
Outstanding. So I did talk about the certificate of occupancy expiration date. People who have COs in place, it's been 12 months. So people paid $300.
So let's take a break. I'll ask.
I just like to finish. Well, there's a point. So there's 2 points of it. If they expire December 31st, they're only getting 6 months worth of the last CO. Say it started in June, so they paid $300 and it expires, and then we got to do another. So there's some double paying there. Okay. The second thing is we could easily, by just amending that, to suggest that hey, by calendar year 2022 is when they expire, and then we won't have this 3-week. We have basically, if it passes tonight, I'm assuming it's in force immediately. Is that correct? That's not. What would be, if it passes tonight, when would it be enforced?
Answer that question. 10 days after publication, but the building department is going to start enforcing it when they see fit.
But that's not in the ordinance. The way it's written, it's December 31 of this year. So I just want, so we did.
We'll address it.
For 2022, which gives us a big transition here. Okay? We're going to hope the council will at least consider that administrative change.
We're going to address it.
I submitted a whole bunch of other things. The last one I want to address is the definition of rental. And this affects all the people who are residents, who don't rent out their homes. And basically, if you give the keys to your house to a close friend, or even your son and daughter, the way it's written,
you need to be addressing the council.
Okay, I'm sorry, but the way it is worded, that you need a certificate of occupancy if I want to let my son or daughter, even if I never rent them.
That'll be addressed as well. Just so you know.
Okay, I mean, you have my documents. I would prefer the whole thing tabled, be considered. And 3, 4, 5 weeks from now, come back with a better defined ordinance. And I support a lot of the things in here, but I think we can come up with compromises for the off-season as well. My final statement. Thank you.
If everybody is done speaking, we're going to go through some of the things that we discussed, and we'll also have to.
Mr. Mayor, what you want to do is a motion to close the public participation.
I'm just letting them know, is everybody done? Is everybody that wanted to speak? Okay, perfect. Is there a motion to close public participation?
I'll make the motion.
You go.
Councilor Vitale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Justin?
Yes.
Councilman Cortez?
Yes.
Councilman Nicola?
Yes.
Councilman Nathan?
Yes.
Okay, so let me just clearly state, public participation is done. We're going to talk amongst ourselves because we're a governing body and our deliberations need to be public. Our deliberation, if Councilman Pizzola says something to me and brings something up and Councilwoman Testa jumps in, we're allowed to jump in on each other, we're allowed to go back and forth. No one in the audience is allowed to jump in. Public participation is over. We need to have our process here. We've all written down your notes. We weren't just sitting here, paying you lip service or anything like that. I mean, I got 4 pages of notes myself, Councilman Cortez in his horrible handwriting, and 3 pages of notes I know that everybody else does as well. And we're going to address these things the way that we can, and then when we can't give an answer, we'll have a legal opinion done about that as well. We have Mike Deline, the head of the building and code department here, if he needs to jump in, which there's a couple things that he wants to jump in. So, a couple of things that I want to point out. First of all, in regards to if you have a pending violation, okay, if you have a pending complaint against you. One of the biggest problems that we have in Point Pleasant Beach, and that a lot of municipalities have that are seasonal, is in May or June, if you get a complaint and you have somebody running around your property buck naked at 3 o'clock in the morning and you get a complaint and the cops come out, the court might not see that until September or October. So it creates an environment where we're not able to address things in the moment. The way that this was explained to me, and we talked to the borough attorney about this, was that it would leave things to the discretion of the building and code department. If you have a pending violation for weeds or leaves or something like that, and the code department denies you a CO because of that, it'll get thrown out in court, and that's not the intent of what we're looking to do. If, come July, you have 4 different noise complaints that the cops have been brought out for, and underage drinking, and who knows whatever else, will they probably pull your CO? Yes. That's the best way that I can summarize that component. To the borough attorney, to that point, is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, I'd say the words aren't really pulled, because this part of the ordinance is about application. So you wouldn't be pulling the CO, you would be refusing the application for the new CO. And that's the only change I can make. But yes, in general, Mr. Mayor, that's exactly right.
Perfect.
Discretion by the building department.
In regards to the names being posted on the doors, my understanding, and we have the borough attorney here and the code department, is that was just part of the existing ordinance that we're amending to fix here, and that hasn't been changed at all. It might not have been getting enforced, but that was my understanding.
That's exactly right, Mr. Mayor, and if I might, 90% of this ordinance is simply combining Chapter 27 and Chapter 13. The duration restrictions are new, the fee changes mentioned were new, some of the bedroom regulations are codifications of the existing fire code, but with the exception of the duration restrictions and the fees, virtually all of this ordinance pre-exists. And particularly the section you're referring to with respect to notification on the doors. The folks who have told you they haven't been doing it have been violating the ordinance. It's been on the books since 2011.
So basically, these 2 ordinances have been combined, so all of this is existing.
Exactly, most of it. And what happened is that what applied to annual rentals is now applied to seasonal rentals and annual rentals, and what was applied to seasonal rentals is now applied to both seasonal and annual. And the duration restrictions were added and the fees were up. That's basically the changes.
I have a big question that I want to ask. I think there's validity in the point that if you paid for a CO and from a layman's perspective, there's a validity to the point that if you paid for a CO, you should be able to get the benefit. Can that either be addressed through an extra ordinance that we could read in at first reading, or is there a way that we can assuage some of that concern now? How can those people get their value for what they do?
I think Mike has already answered that question for me, if I'm not mistaken, Michael.
This is Mike Tulino, the head of our building and code.
I feel like I live down there. The annuals are already on that December 31st month. It's not already on there, but they're 3-year terms. So if you have someone that, say they took out an annual rental last February, they're still going to get the 3 years. Now they're going to get a little bit extra benefit of that because it's going to extend itself.
Okay, so they'll get extra benefit.
Right.
As far as short terms were pretty much already going, people were applying in January pre-COVID and utilizing it because they were really trying to get the benefit of the summer season out of it. So in the COVID season, everything kind of got pushed back due to executive orders and stuff like that. So there are a lot of people's just regular calendar year that they were already doing for short term, because on a calendar basis, essentially, got pushed back. So I don't understand that it was necessarily anything besides the calendar year at that point anyway. We were just due to the fact of catching up to inspections, kind of give people a little bit of leeway in the winter season. So you already have your rentals, January, February, we're physically doing paperwork. There's a chance of us getting to inspections anyway at that point. So if they have a winter seasonal rental in there, we're already okay for them to do that.
Okay, are there any other points, about the ordinance that you'd like to make point out, or does anybody have a question for Mike from the governing body?
Posting of information for tenants and the tenant names, along with tenant information, parking plans, all that stuff, is already in the ordinance, it's already supposed to be posted on the door. It's not on the front of the door, it's on the back of the door. So it's for the tenants to be able to,
We can't hear you back here.
We couldn't hear more.
Information as far as what's supposed to be posted on the door is already in the ordinance, already a requirement. So tenants' names, along with garbage information, along with parking information, is already supposed to be posted on the back of the door.
Okay, Mike, can you just stay there a little bit? Okay, thank you, and again, we're not, no public participation here, no questions, that's all been covered. I think we're very fair with the process. I'll address a hot button issue, and I'm just gonna be really, really frank about it. This governing body, it seems like we have a lot of budding constitutional lawyers here in the ordinance, in the audience, and some that emailed us as well. I had someone yell, I don't know why I didn't bring this up. I had someone yell at me, over the phone, didn't even get their name. They yelled at me, told me we would be sued, and called me a townie, which I took as a badge of honor, I guess, as well. But, this governing body looked at this ordinance. We discussed the legalities of this ordinance as well as it pertains to residents. And we feel that we have a much better chance than not of defending it in court. What I will tell anybody here, or anybody watching at home as well, because we've received so many threats about lawsuits and, we're already collecting money and everything like that. My understanding is that even if you challenge the ordinance, and somehow that resident provision is you make an argument that somehow is taxed in a court of law and successful in a court of law, all that will do is affect the resident component. It won't affect any other component of the ordinance. So for anybody who has lawyers circling and asking for dollars and thinking that this is going to affect your individual situation, it will not. So, I just want to bring that up regarding the lawsuits. We have had many people threaten lawsuits here in Point Pleasant Beach when the situation was not going the way that it should, and we successfully defended all those. So, I just wanted to bring that up and be frank, because I don't want people to be deluded or led astray by people who are promising that they'll be able to take your money and go forward with a lawsuit, because the result of that lawsuit is not the intention of what you would be looking for. Those were my biggest points. I know that there were a bunch of other things that we talked about. I'm sure some of you wrote them down if you'd like to take a look at it. And
Mr. Mayor, I kind of feel like, just very briefly, I know I've had this discussion with all of you, just very briefly on the Equal Protection Clause. The Equal Protection Clause says that all people have to be treated the same under the law. As they teach us in law school, obviously they can't mean that, because if they did, you couldn't treat thieves different than everybody else. So what the 14th Amendment really means is that you can't make distinctions among people that are discriminatory, and they're basically race, creed, color, sexual orientation. They are not resident and non-resident. And so when we look at an ordinance which makes a distinction between resident and non-resident, the question is whether or not that distinction is rationally related to the purpose of the ordinance. And most of the people against it make good cases for that being a very rational relationship. So I'm confident that we have a good case in the courtroom.
Well, and I only say it because there's a lot of nice people in the audience, and I know that there are always some people looking to make a buck on a situation, and I don't want people to get taken advantage of or anything like that. But we've been listening, and we're going to continue to go through the questions that we saw in the comment. Councilman Cortez, do you have anything?
Give me a minute to read my.
Okay. Anybody else? While he's briefing?
How about a comment pertaining to what we heard from the school board member?
Please.
And I'm strongly on this. Our population approximately has gone from 5,600 down to 4,600. And that's because people are buying up houses to rent out for Airbnbs and so on. We can't let that continue.
Councilman speaking, we're not gonna interrupt.
Our population in our schools, as the school board member.
All right, next time you interrupt him, you'll be thrown out, whoever that was. Continue.
Our school board member here, Mr. Ramos, stated that the population is down in the Antrim School, the high school. If that continues, there's a great possibility we could not have a school system in Point Pleasant Beach. We would be a sending district, maybe to Manasquan, Point Pleasant Borough, probably Point Pleasant Borough. You want to see property values plummet without a school system here? So many people move to Point Pleasant Beach year-round, not just in the winter, year-round residents to attend our fabulous schools. Many of us up here, went through Point Pleasant school systems, including me, my wife, my kids, my grandchildren, 6 grandchildren, all through Point Beach. But anyway, a good school system keeps property values high. And that's a good reason why properties are high here. So we can't let that continue, Mr. Mayor. Something has to be done. With houses being bought up to be rented out for the purpose of renting, and it's just hurting the town.
Councilman well said. Thank you very much. Councilman Cortez, do you see something?
Yeah, just a lot of comments. A little bit of what Councilman Pasola said. I used to vacation down here. I wasn't born down here. I moved down here when I was 10 in 1968. Grew up on River Avenue. Before that, we vacationed down here. My mother and I. We come down for a week. We stayed in a motel. In 1970, my mom bought a rental property on Petrini Lane, which happens to be the first row right by the aquarium. Before there was even an aquarium there, it used to be a miniature golf course. We rented that out for a week, 2 weeks. It was always a week in the summer. Some people rented it for a month, and then it was a winter rental. And just like Councilman Capitanero stated, back in those days, 99% of the rentals were in what we call the bungalows, which are no longer bungalows anymore after Sandy and over the years. With maybe a handful, a very small handful of houses. It also comes down to, I know zoning is not supposed to be brought up, but these are, like Councilman Cavanero said, operating like motels in a residential neighborhood when they're only for 1 or 2 days. I mean, Airbnb, 2007, that's when that started. VRBO, 1995 is when that started. Now, a few people said we're going to lose the businesses. Everything's, the downtown, we got emails, downtown's going to become a ghost town. Well, I can tell you, well before 1995, we had businesses downtown before any of this, before the rentals, and the summer, you would pack up, and it would be a ghost town, and they all survived. Mr. Cabano's shoe store, we all bought shoes there. I graduated from the high school here in 1976, and I've seen it change over these years. I'm going to throw a number out to you, 575. Does anyone out there know what that number is? 575, and it is relevant to the town. Any guesses?
A rhetorical question.
That's the number of motel rooms we have. And in my opinion, if you're going to come down for a short stay, you have a lot of options to pick from in a motel room instead of going to a house. And I understand the argument, people want to be together. You want to do that. In the winter, when it's somewhat dead, that's what it said, I think you could get rooms together in the same place. 575 choices. The other argument was, and on the last point, people are going to come down, they're going to stay in the house, they're going to go out to eat, they're going to go that. Well,
if they stay in a motel room, they're gonna go out to eat too, you know? So I like to change. I like to, you know, for a lot of us up here, I know a lot of you out there who are investors, it's about money. You like the town, you bought a house here, but it is monetarily driven. For a lot of us up here, I'll speak for myself, I think everybody else, it's not all about the money, it's about community. When's the last time any investor went to a Friday night football game? Or went to a wrestling match or a basketball game? You know, even though I don't have kids in the school system for quite a while now, I still go, I still attend. And that's part of it, it's community. So that's all I have to say.
Of course. So, I moved, in this town back in 2008, and I'm from Elizabeth, so I'm a Benny, and my husband's from Union. And, we grew up in an area where we rode our bikes. I worked downtown in Elizabeth, and my husband the same. So, we used to come here like everybody. We used to rent a house down in Point Pleasant Beach right up on the boardwalk every summer, and we would have it for the whole summer, all right? Pretty much all the rentals, you know, I would come from Elizabeth, I go to rent in Manasquan, Seaside. We had to do a monthly rental, 2 weeks rental. We couldn't do a weekend rental. I mean, maybe sometimes you could get away with it in Seaside, but basically it was a week to week, month to month, or whole season rental. So when we came here, that's why we picked this place. We picked this place because it's a family town and it was a good school system. And that's why I ran for council, to protect this town, to be up here for the residents. When I got sworn in, that's what I swore to the residents of the town. Now, I understand some of you feel, well, that we're discriminating. No, we're not discriminating against you. I understand that you are part of the community. Of course we want you here. No one's saying that you can't rent out your house. I mean, you can still rent out your house in the summer for week to week. Most of you, this is your second house. You have another house somewhere, and you intend to retire here, and that's great. That's wonderful. I understand that some of you might feel that, like, my heart, really, when people get up here and get emotional, I do. I feel that. I really do. It's not that I don't take that into account. But I am for this ordinance. This ordinance, listen, things can change, okay? If something's not really working out, we can go back to the drawing board. We can make changes. I know the mayor just went on the record and said that there's things that we can look at. It's not permanent. We're not perfect people. But right now, this is what we need to do for our town. And, you know, I stand by that. And if it doesn't work out, we can go back and we can change it. And we can come and have this conversation again. But I'm sorry, I'm for this ordinance.
Well said, Council President.
Yeah, I just want to say a couple things. So unlike the mayor and most of my council members, I've only been here 7 years, coming from North Jersey. So, you know, when we came down, we stayed in the hotels when we were evaluating where we wanted to go. And the one thing we found is, you know, just the year-round perception of this town was awesome. We came all months to see what each month was like, the summer, the craziness, the off-season. And the one thing we found was we love the year-round atmosphere here with little partying and just a lot of, you know, a lot to do, a lot of recreation for our kids, and obviously the schools are great. Look, I've talked to so many people. I've read 400 emails. I called the borough attorney and the mayor almost every day questioning things in the ordinance. Almost every day since it's been out there, just so I have a better understanding. And so I could explain when I talk to people on both sides what's going on. Look, I think this makes sense. I think, you know, we're up here because we were elected to protect our town and the residents. And that's what we're trying to do with this ordinance. So I support doing this as well.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Councilman,
yeah, I think the mayor made a good point last council meeting when he said that this is a new phenomenon come about by the internet and cyber businesses, and the law has to catch up to cyber businesses, and it's taken some years. Before there was an internet, there was no internet law. Now there's law governing the internet, and we can't allow these new fashion businesses, which are allowing one-day rentals, to skirt the zoning laws and insert hotels into what are zoned residential neighborhoods. And it may not be perfect, but it's a starting point. And I had discussions with the borough attorney during the past 2 weeks, and there are things I want to change in the ordinance that are not going to be changed this week upon adoption, but may be considered later, and some of your points may be considered later, but there has to be a starting point.
Can I just add to Councilman Megan? So for those who don't know, this pop-up party scene is a big phenomenon, right? So I spent the entire summer monitoring social media, because that's what I do for a living, to protect our town and all the shore towns against these pop-up parties. And that's what they're doing. They're using the Airbnbs and the VRBOs, and they're bringing in 60, 70, 80 people, drugs, drinking, you name it, and they're just renting out these Airbnbs for the weekend, and they're partying, and they're posting it all over. There's probably 5 to 10 sites on Snapchat alone advertising for all these parties. I mean, literally every single day during the summer, I would send Chief Michigan, hey, there's a party coming up in Lavalette. Luckily, we had maybe 1 or 2 here that we stopped. But to Councilman Mingus' point, this is a huge phenomenon now with the internet. And again, that's another reason why we need to enact this ordinance.
And I just want to say, I'm not, and what, to Councilman Vitale's point, we know that you expressed that. That's not what you were doing, and we do realize that. You're not, renting out to these pop-up parties, and I do understand that.
Right,
but what I'm saying is, you're only a small majority of the people in this town. I'm just saying that. We were to look at the whole town, I mean, of the people that really reached out to me, I would say maybe 10 people reached out to me and they weren't for this ordinance. 10. I got over 500, right, but I got over 500 emails from nobody from this town, nobody, okay? 10, that's it. So I'm just saying.
Mayor, I see this very simple. The big part of our job up here is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our residents and visitors. And to do that, one of the ways to do that, we have to regulate rentals, including short-term rentals. There's no doubt. So it's simple. And like Councilman Cortez, former Councilman Cavanaro said, we can't have hotels popping up in residential neighborhoods. And we can't let corporations like Airbnbs take over the town. And it's slowly happening. I support hotels and motels in the right zones. We have to stand strong and do what's best for all the residents of the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. So, I have just a couple things, and that's it. The one thing I want to address that wasn't addressed yet was the 30-day component in the off-season. I don't want anybody leaving here thinking that we didn't address anything head-on. The majority of other towns in Ocean County that have short-term rentals also have this 30-day component. And the crux of that, for us, is really in the heart of this ordinance in general. In the off-season, it's much easier to sell a rental at 7 days, price it accordingly, and it's a de facto weekend rental. And that's not the intent of the ordinance. The intent of the ordinance, the impetus for this, aside from de-incentivizing the continued trend of investor-only properties being purchased, is to cut down on weekend rentals in general. And this 30-day component to us is the only way that we really see fit to ensure that there aren't major abuses there. Like the council president said, we're going to look at this. We're not perfect. We don't think we're perfect. But I do want everybody to know the majority of other towns in Ocean County that passed this have this 30-day component in here as well. And two last things from me. Much like the council president said, I come across very differently than her. I come across, very straightforward. Hearing the stories of people that want to be a part of Point Pleasant Beach, that are talking about how renting things out additionally, help subsidize that, that pulls at my heartstrings too. I do have heartstrings. I know it doesn't come across that way sometimes, but I do. And it resonates. And we hear what you're saying loud and clear, and we empathize with you as well. But at the end of the day, that financial reality, your personal financial situation and what, motivates or allows somebody to buy or choose to buy or not choose to buy, can't supersede what the intent of the residents and what the wishes and the will of the residents are. And I wrote down a question here that I wanted to see if it was answered tonight. And the question was, why should there be short-term rentals where they were never zoned for in the first place? We probably heard 60 people speak tonight. I don't know, maybe more than 60. It seems like it was a gazillion people, but no one answered that question. No one answered that question in a way that would change my opinion. Why should this council allow there to be short-term rentals where they were never zoned for in the first place? And at the end of the day, when you combine that with the fact that out of everybody that spoke, there was only one resident who didn't manage her own rentals in this entire crowd that was against this ordinance, I think that speaks volumes. So I'm for the ordinance as well, and I appreciate the public debate. I'd like to call for a motion for a vote.
I'll make that motion.
I will second.
That's to adopt.
Yes.
Councilman Vitale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hess?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilman Pasola?
Yes.
Councilman Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you all for coming tonight. We value
before you, that's right, yeah. My mom also and now I know. No, I knew coming in that kind of yeah, because anything I said was away from when he started speaking, anyway, the reason I wanted to get the mail